Welcome to Exploring Theology. I am your host, JD Martin, and I'm so excited that you are here today. We are going to be hosting another very exciting debate. We're going to have Alexei here with me. We're going to be debating the flat earth. We had a previous debate about whether or not all babies that die in infancy would go to hell. So that was a really fun debate. And then we have a follow up debate about, which we're going to have tonight, about whether the earth is flat. Just so you know, if you're new to the channel or whatever, please go back and see some of the previous debates and discussions I've had. I had a recent debate with Leighton Flowers that was fun, Sam Shimon, Sonny Hernandez, a whole bunch of other various debates. So you probably want to check those out if you haven't. And I have a couple debates coming up with Tim Stratton, and have another debate slash discussion with Braxton Hunter, a whole bunch of other kind of conversations. So just please be sure to like and subscribe. So let me bring Alexei on here with us, and I'll let you introduce yourself to the audience, and then we'll go over the format, and then we'll jump right in here onto the debate of whether the earth is flat. So why don't you introduce yourself to the audience, Alexei?
Hi, my name is Alexei. I've been a Christian since 2006. And since then, I've been studying the Bible almost every day and studying long enough. One of the things I saw is flat Earth. So that's going to be introduction.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Alexei.
Uh-huh.
So in that last debate, you had the flat Earth T-shirt. People said, "Is that a flat Earth T-shirt?" Yes, and then you wanted to defend that position. So now, of course, you have no T-shirt. Santa Claus is of the devil. So you in the controversial T-shirts. So let's do the debate format,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll jump in here. Okay. So the debate format is going to be this: that we're going to do 20-minute openings. We're actually going to put a timer on, and we're going to stick to it, right? We're just going to hoot 20 minutes, and then however far we get, that's it. And then 20-minute openings for you, 20-minute openings for me. Then we're going to have a cross examination of 30 minutes, 30 minutes of you cross examining me, 30 minutes of me cross examining you. And then we'll open it up to a live Q&A. Now, if you have questions, go ahead and be putting those. I can star them and then get back to them, but we will have an actual live Q&A where you could be definitely asking your questions during that time of the discussion. So does that sound good, Alexei?
Yes.
Okay. So do you have your presentation pulled up?
Yep.
Let me go ahead and put the timer on, and then I will let you know if you don't. You should probably set your own timer if you don't have one. But I will be letting you know about 1 minute, that the 1 minute delay, and then we'll close out. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna go. You want me to share that screen for you?
Yes, please.
Okay. So go ahead and take it away.
All right, I'm gonna argue about flat Earth. That I believe that the Earth is flat. And the basic question, the ultimate question, if you believe in 6 day creation, 6 24 hour creation, that is the sun was created for the Earth or the Earth for the sun in Genesis chapter 1. Um, so let's begin. Genesis chapter 1. I don't have 20 minutes to exposit whole chapter, but I want to touch on a couple of things. Number one, look at what's the chart, Sunday till Friday, and notice most of the creation is focused on the Earth, is not focused on Mars or Jupiter or aliens or UFOs. They focused on specifically on the Earth, and I would argue that the sun and the moon and the stars was created for the Earth. And the biggest thing, I would want to focus on firmament. Firmament, firmament appears 17 times in the Bible. However, most of the translations would use word expanse. I'm not a King James only guy. I'm kind of like a Greek and Hebrew type of guy. Whatever English translation fits, the proper translation is the one we're gonna go by. Sometimes ESV, sometimes KJV, but I believe that KJV and this um, specific word translated more properly. So firmament appears. Oops. There we go. Appears in Genesis chapter 1, verse 6 through 8. And it says this: And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Like I said, ESV translated expanse, which makes you think more of a like a gas, versus firmament. It makes you more think of a solid. Next Bible verse I want to focus about is Tower of Babel, and I want you to ask yourself a question: Why God confused the languages? Genesis chapter 11, verse 1 through 4. Now all the earth used the same language and the same words, and it came about as they journeyed east, and they found a plain in the land of Shiran and settled there. Then they said to one another, Come, let's make bricks and fire them thoroughly. And they used brick for stone, and they used tar for mortar. And they said, Come, let's build ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into heaven. Notice, a tower whose top will reach into heaven, and let's make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered abroad over the face of all the earth. Um, the point I want to point out is that uh, God confused languages because they wanted to build a tower which will reach into heaven. But all of a sudden, in the 20th century and up and towards now, all of a sudden, God is like, you know what? It's okay. You guys, instead of building towers, you can guys send astronauts and create NASA, even though them tell a bunch of lies and stuff. So I would argue from Genesis 1, it. Genesis chapter 11. The reason is why God confused the languages is because they wanted to build the tower, which will reach into heaven. Next point, Joshua chapter 10, verse 12 to 14. Then Joshua spoke to the Lord on the day when the Lord turned to Amorites over to the sons of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand still at Gibeon, and moon at the valley of Ajalon. And so sun stood still, and the moon stopped until the nation avenged themselves of their enemies. And it goes on about once again continuing on about sun stopped and the moon stopped. If you look at the map, from those two places, from Ai to Gibeon, is about 50 miles. That would be so ridiculous if it would be literally millions and millions of miles just between sun and a moon. Next point, Isaiah 40 verse 22. It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers who stretch out the heavens like uh, curtain and spreads them out like a tent to live in. If you ever spread out a tent, you went somewhere, if you were in the military, spread out a tent, there's no way it's going to look like a ball, but it will look like a firmament, like a dome. The circle of the earth appears 3 times. Here's some reference, look it up yourself. And some people all of a sudden they confuse the firmament, or I would say the circle with a ball, where in Isaiah, for some reason, Isaiah 22 verse 17 through 18, it says this: Behold, the Lord will hurl you violently, O you strong man. He will seize you firm hold on you and whirl you around and around and throw you like a ball into a wide land. It also appears three times, but it's two different words. And I want to ask you a basic question: which one is a ball? Which one is a circle? You're not gonna show up to a basketball with a frisbee disc, and if you show up to the frisbee golf with a basketball, people look at you like, man, come on, you know the difference. Next, Job 38, verse 13 to 15, so that it would take hold of the ends of the earth, and the wicked would be shaken off from it. It is changed like clay, referring to the earth. It will be changed like clay under the seal, and they stand out like a garment. So the point is that if you ever put a seal on a letter or something like that, it will not look like a ball. It will look like a circle, or which is below right there. Next, Matthew 4, verse 8. Again, the devil took him along to a very high mount and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. Reality is this: doesn't matter which mount you will go to. If the earth is a ball, it would be pointless because you only be able to see 50% if it's super high and if you have high vision. You will not. If you would be in a Mount Everest, you would still be unable to so-called see kingdoms of North America, like Aztec kingdom at that time. But with some the point is that this verse is pointless if you believe the earth is a ball. No, it's not a ball, it's a circle. Yeah, that's the point, like how far with a naked eye you can see from the top of Mount Everest. Next verse is Luke 23, verse 44 to 45. It was now about the 6th hour. By the way, in a Jewish time, in the 6th hour, it's so first hour is 6 a.m. plus 6, it's 12 o'clock. So 6 hour, and darkness came over the entire land, or I would argue the translation be earth, until the 9th hour, because the sun stopped shining and the veil of the temple was torn in two. Know that it's really in my model of the earth, it would not be even matter if how what some is sun stop shining or not, because sun is just like any other star, is just created for the earth. Next point, Philippians chapter 2, verse 9 through 11. For this reason also God highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name which is above every name, so that at the name of Jesus, every knee will bow, of those who are in earth and on earth and under the earth, and that every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. And we have heaven, we have earth, and we have underneath the earth, which in the Old Testament referred to Sheol, but now Christ came in and explains that it's beneath us now is hell. Also, there's a bunch of flat earthers, said to say, who try to make ridiculous claims that there's 200 plus Bible verses. No, it's not. Guys, if you're a flat earther and a Christian, no, look for specific verses. Like if it has to, if it deals with nation of Israel, it's or four corners of the land or of the earth. It's actually might be referring to the Israel, not the whole earth. So please, if you're a flat earther, if you're a Christian, stop making those claims. Elsa, I would argue that let God be the true and all men, specifically all politicians, all astronauts, all with some NASA workers, all the astronomers, let them be liars. Because in Psalm chapter 2, verse 1 through 4, it says this: Why are the nations in an uproar and the people devising a vain thing? The kings of the earth takes their stand, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. So the point is this: that yes, God ordains the governments all over the earth. However, those governments, I would divide between secret will and revealed will. And secretly, yes, God controls all of their actions, but in a revealed will, just like the Nebuchadnezzar was a servant of God, yet the same servant of God built the golden statue to test Daniel and his friends. So if you just blindly follow Romans 13 and say, well, if the government says so, it is. If government tells you to inject poison into your body, are you going to do it? No, you will not, even though the government may lie to you saying that, hey, this is actually some good with some medicine for you, when it's in reality it's a poison. So just want to point this one out. Elsa, primarily it is a Bible debate. If you like scientific proof for the flat earth, go to Eric Debay YouTube channel or search his videos or articles. Um, Elsa, there's many flat earthers shields, or just with some want to get some attention. So just but with some Eric Dubase, like, made the movie in 2021 called Level. If you're interested in science from the scientific point of view, I would recommend to start from this video. However, else I would kind of be warn you that Eric Dubay is not a Christian, so from spiritual point of view, he's dead in sin, but he does have good scientific explanations. And there's two books if you want to check them out. Those are two books. So, and that's it. That's it. Hello?
Yep. Sorry about that. All right. So thank you, Alexei. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
maybe
later
start.
on, like I said, Genesis chapter 1, study for yourself. I don't have time to get through whole chapter, but
Okay.
anyway.
So let me restart the clock, and then I will do my opening statement. Here we go. Make sure. Okay. All right, here we go. So the grand deception. Okay. So the first thing I want to say is that I actually have no problem with the idea that there is some kind of grand deception. I mean, obviously, I think some of you are thinking our friend Alexei here is a conspiracy theorist and has been deceived by just craziness, right? But the reality is, I don't have any problem with an idea, conception of a grand deception. In fact, I believe a grand deception, namely that the devil is out to deceive and kill and destroy. I believe 2 Timothy 3:16 says all scripture is breathed out by God and is profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness. I'll be honest with you, before this debate, I never really thought about the flat earth because it just seemed so obvious that the earth was not flat. And as I read the Bible, nothing suggested to me that the earth was, in fact, not, was flat, should I say, that it wasn't round or whatever. And after studying for the topic, I've discovered, well, I think I was right about that. The Bible actually doesn't say anything about this per se, and that really I don't have to make a positive case that the Earth is a sphere or round. I don't have any problem with the Earth being flat. What I have to say is I don't think the Bible addresses this issue. So we're gonna have to actually go out there, look, and decide if the Earth is flat or not. If the Earth is flat, it's flat. If it's not, it's not. But it's not a Bible issue. But the bottom line is this for me. If the Bible teaches that the earth is flat, I don't care what my eyeballs see. I'm going to believe the Bible, right? I'm going to affirm the fact that the Bible is telling me the truth. The second thing is my eyeballs see. I mean, certainly there's pictures that we have from space and other things like that, but actually I don't perceive the Earth being round or whatever. I perceive that the Earth seems pretty flat to me from my perception. So potentially, maybe it's possible that I'm being deceived and lied to and everybody else by the government, because I don't put that past them per se. But ultimately, the question of debate is not what the government says, not what the science book says, it's not what I think I've been taught all my life, is what did the scripture say, because the scripture is breathed out from God and profitable for teaching, for proof, and correction. I believe that, as Romans 3 says, let God be true and every man a liar. That includes conspiracy theorists. That includes people who think that believing in flat earth is somehow more holy than not believing in flat earth. And I'm not saying Alexei believes that, but let every man be a liar, right? If the Bible simply doesn't say that the earth is flat, then let's not say that the Bible says that, because that would make putting words in God's mouth, and that's taking the Lord's name in vain. Now, of course, I don't think my opponent is doing that. I think he actually believes what he's saying. But if it's not true, let's not say it's true, because then we could create an unnecessary stumbling block for unbelievers, telling them you have to believe that the earth is flat because the Bible teaches that, and the Bible may not actually teach that at all. So let's make sure that we make every man a liar and God be true, but not make God a liar by saying things that he never said. Now, back to the grand conspiracy. I think it's difficult to believe that necessarily there's a conspiracy to this level, in the sense that people would be just flat out lying about going to space when they went to space, or flat out lying about taking pictures up there when they haven't actually taken pictures up there, or saying that I was looking at a map. And I'm going to ask Alexei about this, about how people lie about how long it takes to travel. Right, like, if you look at a map, normally you look over on the left side of the map or whatever, right? You see America here, you see the world over there, and you can go this way, you can go to the right, or that's east, or you can go west and get to the same location much faster by going east. And I'm trying to figure that out. So it's a major grand conspiracy. But hey, I mean, the God of this world has blinded the minds of unbelievers. He is the author of lies. He is the God of this age. So maybe. So let me go to a biblical case here about why I don't think that the Bible actually teaches that the earth is flat. I think the first thing we need to realize is the Bible is full of figurative language. The Bible is full of figurative language, and simply taking verses like the four winds of the earth, or the four corners of the earth, or just the various passages that my opponent looked at about Jesus being taken up on a high mountain. We'll talk about it in a second. All of those scriptures, I think we got to be real careful that we don't fall into the trap of taking figurative passages literally. So let's look at some of these things. For example, in Psalm 135, verse 7, it says that God brings forth the wind from his storehouses. Now, are we supposed to believe that God literally has a storehouse, some kind of treasury, some kind of container that the wind is, and when he wants the wind to come up, he pulls up the storehouse, out comes the garage, there comes wind coming on the earth, oop, no more wind, closes down the storehouses? I think, of course, we know, and I don't think Alexei himself, we'll see when we ask him, believes that the wind is actually literally carried in a storehouse. It's obviously figurative language. In Job 38, my opponent quoted other parts of Job, but Job 38 says, God has enclosed the sea behind doors when it bursts forth from the womb. Now, a couple questions. Number one, what womb did the sea come from? Is there some kind of celestial being that gave birth is to the sea? Is the sea some kind of amniotic fluid of some deity-like creature? Of course not. No, of course this is figurative language. A womb is describing things that come forth, and this is talking about God creating the sea and the waters, as we see in Genesis chapter 1, which my opponent wanted to go into. There is no cosmic womb that the waters come out of. The second thing is, it says that the sea is behind doors. What doors is the sea behind? I know that there's a grand conspiracy that my opponent is claiming about, astronauts apparently claiming to be out of the earth, but has anybody ever seen these doors? Is there, in fact, if we were to go to the ends of the earth, would we find ginormous doors that are holding behind the sea? I saw the pictures that he had. I noticed I didn't see any doors on his picture. Are there supposed to be doors that are holding back the sea? I'll ask again, are there doors? I don't think so. I think this is figurative language. I think my opponent knows that. In Job chapter 36, verse 30, it describes the sea as having roots. It says he covers the roots of the sea. Now, if you look at some other translations, that's Job 36, verse 30. Sometimes it says depths. When you go to the literal translation, it says the roots of the sea. Now, plants have roots. Does the sea have roots? Are we supposed to imagine that the sea somehow has roots? I don't think so. Again, figurative language. So let's look at some other figurative language. In Deuteronomy 28, verse 63. Now, this is really interesting. Deuteronomy 28, verse 63, the Bible prophesies that if the Jews would act wickedly and evil, it says he's going to pluck them off their land and he's going to have others take possession of it. And in verse 64, he says this, and the Lord will scatter you, Jews, among all the peoples, from one end of the earth to the other. And there you shall serve other gods of wood, stone, which neither you nor your fathers have known. So when you violate the commandments of God, I'm going to kick you off the land. I'm going to send you to one end of the earth and the other. Now, did this ever happen? Did the Jews ever end up scattered all the way up into the farthest parts of South America and the farthest, all the way up to Japan? Are Jews scattered off in Japan and they all the way in South America? No. They are not. This never happened literally like this. Even more importantly, in Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 8, it quotes this passage and describes it in this way. It says, remember the word that you commanded your servant Moses. What command? The passage we just quoted. Saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the peoples. But if you return to me and keep my command and do them, though you are the outcast in the remotest parts of the heaven, from there I will gather them and bring them to the place that I've chosen them and make my name dwell there. So if you remember, in Nehemiah's day, the people of Israel had acted wickedly. This prophecy was fulfilled in part. They were scattered off to the remotest parts of heaven. In the passage here, Nehemiah's quote, it says the uttermost parts of heaven. Now, first off, if you take that literally, the uttermost parts of heaven would be some place in the universe somehow there. I mean, this is like some galaxy or something like that. This is, from their understanding, maybe this would be, past the 7 planets or something. No, nobody ever takes that literally. What it means by uttermost parts of heaven, if you look at other translation, it means the uttermost parts of the horizon, as far as the eye can see, the uttermost parts of the world. A lot of translations say, right? This is as far out on the other side of the world, okay, the other side of the earth. Now, where did they actually end up? They ended up in Babylon. Where was Babylon? Was Babylon at the end of the earth? No, it wasn't. Babylon was not at the end of the earth. Babylon was 1,000 miles away. Babylon was probably around the horizon. Babylon was probably as far as they could see. It was prospectively the end of the earth, but really it was 1,000 miles that way, right? No, this was not literally part of the uttermost part of the world. And again, this is where it breaks down. If my opponent wants to take a literal understanding of the Bible, he has a problem here. He's supposed to go to the uttermost parts of the earth. In fact, it's said in Deuteronomy, they're going to be cast one over here and one over here. So both sides. But really what happened is they all went to Babylon. And so, no, they did not go to the othermost parts of the earth. This is a figurative use. Another passage here, what we want to understand, we got to understand the figurative use of the Bible is Isaiah chapter 40, verse 12. Isaiah 40:12 says this, who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand and marked off the heavens with a span, enclosed the dust of the earth in a measure and weighed the mountains in scales and hills in a balance? Oh, come on, guys, let's think about this. Who has done this? Obviously, the answer is God. But are we supposed to believe, number one, that God has hands? Are we supposed to believe that? Does Alexei believe that God has hands? If not, he understands the difference between figurative use and a figurative use, okay? A literal use and a figurative use. The other thing is, what is the hollow of a hand? A hollow of a hand is this thing right here, right? I don't know if you can see that. This is the hollow of my hand. So is this telling us, I know the size of God's hand. It's how much the water can fit in the hollow of his hand. Or what about he says he marked off the heavens with a span. What is a span? It's your thumb all the way to your middle finger. That is a span. So is the length of the heavens, is this the size of God's hand? Of course not. Is this figurative language? Does God really know? Has he grabbed the earth and measured the dust of how long the dust is, or weighed the mountains, or put the hills in a balance? Of course not. This is all figurative language talking about God's incomprehensible knowledge and the fact that God knows every detail about creation which he designed and created. He did not go around taking off a ruler and marking little spots where he was going to design the universe. Go into Genesis 1, you see nothing of the sort. This figurative language. All right, so if you're not familiar with that, let me give you some more figurative prophecies that you can see, again, this concept of figurative language throughout the Bible. In Malachi chapter 4, for those who want to be hyper-literalist, the Bible should be interpreted literally. It must be interpreted literally, unless you can't interpret it literally. Well, how about Malachi chapter 4, verse 5? It says, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes. I'm going to send Elijah the prophet before I send my Mashiach, who's going to save the world. Okay? Who was Elijah? Are we waiting for Elijah? The Jews are waiting for Elijah because they don't think the Messiah has come. We are not waiting for Elijah. Why? Because the disciples specifically asked Jesus about this passage and said, why do the prophets say that Elijah must come before the Messiah comes? And he said, if you have eyes to see, I tell you that Elijah has already come. And it says explicitly in the text, he was speaking about John the Baptist. He who has eyes to see and ears to hear, let him receive the things that God is saying. So, if we take a hyper-literalist understanding, then how do we explain that Jesus said that Elijah coming was in fact John the Baptist, but yet it doesn't say that in Malachi chapter 4 that one will come like Elijah, but when we go into Luke, we find out that John the Baptist was not literally Elijah. John the Baptist explicitly says he was not Elijah, and Luke says he came in the spirit and the power of Elijah. So Elijah didn't literally come, but one in the spirit and the power of Elijah came, which fulfilled the prophecy that did not say, by the way, I will send one in the spirit and the power of Elijah, but I will send you Elijah, the prophet. How do we reconcile all this? Okay, we reconcile because we recognize that we should not necessarily take the Bible hyper literally. Sometimes it is completely literal, and sometimes it's more figurative, and sometimes it's somewhere in between that. Another passage is Matthew 2:15, where Matthew tells us that a prophecy of Jesus was fulfilled when God called Jesus out of Egypt. It says, out of Egypt I called my son. I don't have time to get into this, but if you go to Isaiah, it's very clear that Hosea is talking about Israel, and yet Jesus, that Matthew in the New Testament applies this to Jesus. What is going on here? It cannot be taken literally. What is going on here is that Matthew's hinting us off is that Jesus is fulfilling the role of Israel. But the point is the prophecy, out of Egypt I called my son, is not a literal prophecy. It is a typological prophecy. A holistic literal interpretation will simply break down. And I'll look at one other passage that kind of goes into this kind of, well, I'm going to skip that. Let me go to one additional passage. In Matthew 13:31, Jesus says that the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all seeds. And you know the story. It's the smallest of all seeds, but when it's planted and it grows up and becomes a tree and becomes bigger than all of the other plants in the garden. Now, is the mustard seed literally the smallest of all seeds? No, not even close. There's a seed called the jewel of orchard that is massively more, it's almost microscopic, massively more small than this. But does that mean Jesus is wrong? Of course not. Jesus, his point was not to teach about some seed that we discovered thousands of years later or whatever with a microscope. That's not the point. The point is Jesus is saying, guys, look, in your farm, and when you go to the grocery store, what's the smallest seed out there? Okay, what's the smallest seed that you plant in your field? It is a mustard seed. And look at that tiny seed that's so small, as it is, and how big it grows. See, when you take this hyper-literal interpretation, you make the Bible not make any sense anymore, and we should not do that. And that's ultimately the contention, I think, that Alexei and flat earthers are doing, is they're taking the Bible too literally. I said that was the last one. I'll give you one more. In Genesis chapter 1, he wanted to go to Genesis 1. Genesis chapter 1, it says, God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. What's the lesser light? The lesser light is the moon. Does this mean, I'm going to ask Alexei when we get to the conversation, if I remember, does the moon shine its own light? Is the moon its own source of light? If not, then once again, is that really the plain meaning of the passage? It says that there are two lights, the greater light and the lesser light. It doesn't say that there's a moon that reflects the light of the sun. It says there's a greater and a lesser light. So does that mean that the moon actually reflects its own light, or is this merely a phenomenological description of when we go out there and we say, hey, there is moonlight? That's what we say. There is moonlight because we see light coming off the moon. Okay, is this phenomenological language and not to be taken over literally? I think it's to be taken phenomenologically. So in the little time I have here, I'm going to go through some of the flat earth verses. We heard a few of them, and I'm going to give some of my initial response. So Daniel chapter 4 is one verse that is used as a flat earth text. And it talks about he sees this tree, and it grew up, and it became strong, so that its top reached to the heaven, and it was visible to the end of the earth. And they say, look, if the earth is not flat, you have this giant tree up there. If the earth is not flat, then people can't see it from the ends of the earth, right? And this is very similar to the argument Alexei used. He's talked about the devil, and the devil took Jesus on a very high mountain. He showed him all the kingdoms of the world and say, look, if the earth is not flat, then he couldn't have possibly done this. Or here's another kind of same basic argument. Revelation 1:7, Jesus is coming in the clouds, and every eye will see him. Even those who pierced him, all the tribes of the earth will wail on account of him. Again, if the earth is not flat, then how can everybody possibly see Jesus when he's showing up in a central location? They're all kind of the same thing. How can everybody see something if the earth is not flat? Now, the answer is a couple things. Number one, Daniel chapter 4 is a figurative description that's really describing Nebuchadnezzar. Nobody literally saw Nebuchadnezzar and all that other stuff. That's just not the point. As far as Matthew chapter 4, Jesus, he might have went on a really high mountain. It might have been a visionary experience. The bottom line, it was a supernatural experience where the devil and God somehow, some supernatural experience happened where he presented all the kingdoms of the earth before him and said, these will all be yours, I'll give it to you. This is not talking about being taken on a literal mountain and looking out. I mean, what literal mountain can you climb? The highest mountain? You find us the highest mountain, go on that mountain and say, okay, look up there, I see China. Look over there, I see Moscow. Look over there, New York City, California. Come on, guys. No way. That's not the meaning of this passage. Never happened. Same thing. Jesus coming on the clouds. That's a supernatural seeing. I don't know how everybody's going to see him, but the intent of that passage is not to tell you there's a flat earth. That's not the intent of the passage, right? The intent of the passage is to tell you that when Jesus comes, every single person will be affected and aware of it. In Psalm 104, it talks about the earth is set on its foundations. It describes other passages, describes the earth has these various foundations. Is this literal? I don't think so. I think this is describing the earth is described as a building or as a temple. And just as a temple or building has foundations, so the earth is described as a foundation. This does not necessarily mean that the earth has literal foundation. In fact, in that very passage in Psalm 104, it says, God has set the earth on its foundations so that it should never be moved. Now, if you take this super hyperly literal, then every time there's an earthquake, this text is contradicted. If you say, no, that's not what it means. It just means, that it will never be moved as in it's permanent. Well, that's not true either. In a super literal way, it's not true either because the earth will one day be destroyed. So again, that's not what it means. What it means is that the earth is on its foundations. It is solid. It is not going anywhere until God decides to destroy, and that's exactly what happened. In Revelation 7:1, we hear descriptions of the four corners of the earth, just like we hear in Isaiah chapter 11. The four corners of the earth is just simply a description of, it's describing earth as a box. I don't even think, I know as Alexei didn't mention the four corners of the earth. I think the reason is because he's trying to take the earth as a circle. So what is it? Is the earth a circle? Does it have four corners? Since when does a circle have four corners? See what I mean? You just get into all these contradictions when you try to take these passages. Literally, the four corners of the earth is just describing the remote parts of the planet, and that's all it's really saying, and it's describing it as a box, but no one's supposed to conclude that it literally is a box. Now, I found it really, really interesting. I got 1 minute here. I found it really, really interesting that Alexei quoted Isaiah 40, verse 22. This is usually the text that people would point to as the one text maybe that the Bible actually teaches that the earth is in fact a circle or a sphere. And Alexei made much that a circle and a sphere are not the same thing. So Isaiah 40 verse 20, it is he who sits on above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to dwell on. So I think, I'll just say this. This text could be sensus planor. It could be, hinting at the fact that the earth really is a sphere and God sits above it. But, honestly, what this text might be doing is just describing phenomenologically, the circle of the earth probably just refers to the horizon, and that God sits above the horizon and he's enthroned above earth. That's probably all it's saying, and I don't think that we should take this text as Alexei is doing and creating a whole cosmology and a whole shape of a pizza shaped earth because of it. But my time is up, so we'll bring Alexei back in here. You're on mute, brother. We'll bring Alexei back in here, and then we will go into our next portion of the debate. You there, Alexei? You're on mute, brother. You're just on mute on StreamYards.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
There you go.
There
All
we
right,
go.
so we'll reset the time for 30 minutes, and then it's your time, okay?
All right. So,
All right, go ahead.
do I ask you any question or no?
Yep, your time to ask questions and kind of lead the conversation.
Okay. First, you talked about the pictures of the Earth. Could you show me one? Not the CGI.
So as far as the pictures of the earth, so when we were discussing this debate, you specifically told me you wanted to debate this from the Bible.
No, but you the one who brought it up,
I'm
because the
saying that.
problem. Okay, but let's keep
But
this one
let me just
because
answer that real quick. Let me just
okay,
answer that. So you specifically said that you wanted to debate this from the Bible and
yeah,
not the
but
science.
yeah, I agree, but you're the one who brought it up.
Well, the reason I brought that up is because you brought in some scientists toward the end of your
Okay,
presentation.
okay,
So
that's true. That's
once
fair.
I
That's
saw that
fair.
you opened up some science, I said, okay, I'll open up a little bit of science.
Okay,
But on, yeah, I don't have a picture. I can Google one, I'm sure, but
yeah,
you
that's
know, I don't know if
CGI.
that. Yeah, so I don't know if that will prove anything to
No,
you.
okay. Did you notice that I never used Job 36:30? I used Job, what's some 38, 13 through 15, but you quoted Job 36:30. I never used it. Then
Okay.
also said Deuteronomy, I never used it. Nehemiah, I never used it.
Well, I didn't say you.
Malachi,
I didn't
I
say you
never
quoted
used it.
all. I didn't say you quoted all those verses.
No, I agree, but notice in the end of the what's some biblical presentation at the slide 20, at slide
Yeah.
20, I specifically said that there are not 200 verses plus, as
Yeah.
I said, because I agree that many flat earthers trying to twist the Bible, and seems like you watched Ray Comfort refuting the flat earthers, did you?
No, but I should have. I like Ray
Oh, okay,
Comfort.
but yeah, Rick Comfort actually made a video anti-flat Earth, and I agree that many verses that you quoted has nothing to do with the flat Earth. That's why I specifically send you verses in advance, and I specifically wanted to study those specific verses because, like I said, too many biblical flat earthers trying to get as many verses as possible, and then when I came first time through like biblical flat earth and I start studying, and I was like, guys, it's like at least three quarters of them has nothing to do with flat earth. Elsa, you mentioned like like Malachi, I never mentioned. Daniel, I never mentioned. Revelation, I never mentioned. But you did talked about Matthew chapter 4. So you believe it was just a spiritual experience on the highest mountain.
Yes, that's right.
So you would say, I mean, so that would be even pointless to get to any high mountain at all.
Yeah. No.
If there would be just a spiritual experience, he could have go beneath the earth. It would not be even matter if it would be spiritual experience.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think number one. Again, I wonder, and I want to go look at the text in all of its context and all of the sort. But I think what we're supposed to, the image we're supposed to get now, whether he was even on a mountain, even if the mountain itself was a very high mountain, was a spiritual experience itself. I don't know that. I mean, did the devil literally say, "Come follow me" as we travel miles and miles or whatever from the desert, and let me, let me tempt you on this mountain? I tend to think probably not. I think what happened was that this was more of a whole thing. Probably was a visionary kind of a spiritual experience where the devil was permitted to bring Jesus on a spiritual kind of mountain and present him with all. It even says in Luke, in a moment of time. Kind of again, you can see it like the devil's up there on the mountain and he's showing Jesus all of the kingdoms. Say, I'll give this all to you. I think that's really the point. This is not literally climbing on a literal mountain, looking down and saying, you see that city over there, in that tiny, tiny, little, tiny, tiny, tiny. Do you see it? No, I don't really see it. I don't really see it, devil. Well, it's right there. It's right there. No, I really don't think that's really what's going on there.
So, like, if we talk about Matthew chapter 4, what's the previous experience was? Notice, like, in verse 5, Matthew chapter 4, verse 5, it says this: Then the devil took him along into the holy city and had him stand on the pinnacle of the temple. Do you
Yeah.
think it was a spiritual or actual physical thing happened?
Yeah, once again, I think it's very, it would be very shocking. Let me see. Yeah, he took him in the holy city and set him on the pinnacle of the temple and said to him, "You're son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written." Yeah, I think it would be really, really shocking to imagine that we actually saw Jesus. We probably couldn't see Satan because he's a spiritual being, and all of a sudden we see Jesus climbing up on the highest building of the temple and considering jumping off. Right? I really don't
So,
think that
so
that's
you don't
really what
think it
happened.
actually physically happened? That Satan took him to the holy city and made him stand on the pinnacle of the temple. You know, the temples that the Jews rebuilt,
No,
Nehemiah
I
and Book
don't.
of.
I don't actually think so. I think it was probably more of a spiritual experience of a
So
temptation.
spiritual experience, and where he would where he would even jumped, if
He
that
would.
would
He
be
would.
just spiritual. So he was
I
like
think he
in a
would.
trance. He was in a trance, and then like laying like this. Oh Jesus! Jump from this pinnacle of the temple. That would be so
No, no,
ridiculous.
no, no, no.
That's
Here we go. No, no.
ridiculous.
Well, let me.
That's
Sorry,
ridiculous.
you're making me laugh. Oh no. So okay, I'll say this. No, I think it was a spiritual experience personally, and I think that it was a test of whether he was. It was kind of like it was. It was probably something like Paul said that whether in the body or out of the body, I don't know. Right, so it felt like he was fully in. It felt like he was fully embodied, but I don't think he was actually on top of the temple. But let's just say he was, and somehow the devil was able. The guy's able to do this, right? So let's say God slash the devil was able to transport Jesus so that he's like hovering on top of the temple or something or
No,
whatever, and telling
pinnacle of the
okay, that he's
temple.
he's he's suddenly boom up there in the unless you're gonna think that they were literally climbing up there while people were watching, Jesus is climbing up the temple. But I think it's entirely possible that it was a spiritual experience. Or let's just say you're right, he was transported there, boom, like in 1 second. Next thing you know,
Yeah.
he's transported there on the temple. Then fine, you could say the same thing. The devil transported Jesus on the highest mountain.
Uh
But the
huh.
point is, it was a spiritual experience of, I think, for sure. Now, when him seeing all of the kingdoms, I mean, are we supposed to imagine that there was no clouds that day? Around the whole globe that they had perfect vision, and
No,
what
it
kind of
would be
man
it
could even
would
see
not
that
be even
far?
impossible. The higher you go, because if it's a globe, you're only able to see 50% of the Earth.
Well, I'm saying even under your model,
No,
right?
you'll be
No,
seeing
I'm
the
taking
whole
on
thing.
your
You'll be
model.
able to think, see whole thing. All you gotta do is maximize the vision.
So wait a second. You think that if you got on the highest mountain, that
Yeah.
you could see every single kingdom
Yes.
with your eyeballs?
Yes. If you well now not eyeballs, but if you have maximized vision, because
Did, so
Christ
so
had the
did
perfect vision of all things.
so Christ had supernatural. So you do at least believe something supernatural is happening here, right?
Yeah, he can
A
have not
normal a
just
normal person with
2020.
normal
Talking about
eyeballs,
telescopes, like
a
my
normal
plus
person a normal
thousand plus.
person with normal eyeballs
He
could
would not
not
be able to.
see.
Yeah,
So you do at least agree this is a supernatural thing happening.
yeah, but if you have super eyes like a telescopes, you can see the whole thing.
Okay. And that's what you think Jesus always had super eyes? Like
Yeah, he had.
telescopes?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Next, because but I addressed it in the very end also. These four corners of the earth, or actually translations can translate as a four corners of the land or four corners of the country, which actually would refer to the nation of Israel. Like that's why once again I reproved flat earthers who claim like there's 200 plus Bible verses. Four corners of the earth can refer to the Israel, or I would translate as the four corners of the land or four corners of the country, specifically referring to the Israel. So
So no, all the reference to four quarters of the earth always refer to Israel.
not always, not always. Sometimes, like for example, Revelation 20, that's I would say that's the whole, with some whole earth. But
So
for
sometimes it does refer to the whole earth.
sometimes, but very rare, because
Okay,
like
so
in
when it
Old Testament.
oh go
My
ahead.
I
Sorry, I should
thought
have time
my
the question.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
because like I said that if you look at the Old Testament, when God specifically deals with Israel and God gave the law and oracles only to the nation of Israel at that point of time. So when I hear like flat earthers quote like Deuteronomy, or with some Jeremiah, with some Oivin, with some in Matthew, like out of the out of the uh, what's some how is it, four corners of the earth. Queen Sheba came to hear the Solomon. It's like no, she came from Ethiopia, out of the outside of the land of Israel. So that's why I would never use four corners of the earth, those verses. But at least you agreed that Isaiah 40 verse 20, it seems like a circle, and if you put a tent, it would not never make a ball. But where are your verses, J.D. Martin, to prove that the Earth is a ball and spins around the sun?
Yeah. So one thing, let me stop the time real quick here. I just realized that this is probably the only discussion I've ever done where I did not pray before the discussion that God would bless it. So I'm just gonna I stop your time real quick. I'm just gonna pray really quick. It's gonna be quick, because I don't think that's cool that we didn't ask the Lord to bless this conversation. So real quick, dear Heavenly Father God, I just ask that you bless this conversation. Help us to speak in charity. Help us to bless your people. Help us to show them how Christians can dialogue and discuss in a charitable manner, Lord. And just please teach your people something helpful by us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Now, what was your question?
So, what are your verses to prove that what's some the Earth is a ball and this ball rotates around the sun?
Yeah. So my
What are your
argument,
Bible verses to prove
yeah,
that?
my argument wasn't that the Bible teaches that the earth is in fact. I would say that the closest
No,
thing we
your
have,
argument is that the
the the
Earth
clo-
is a ball,
the
and
closest thing the closest thing we have to the Bible potentially giving us any cosmology that would describe the Earth in the ball-like spherical shape would be Isaiah 40 verse 22, which is the text that we were discussing, that you had the balls and the frisbees, and we could discuss that. But honestly, I would say that I don't believe that the Bible describes the cosmological shape of the earth. I think rather what the Bible does is tell us that God created the earth, He sustained the earth, He's going to destroy the earth, He's going to recreate the earth. For example, I don't think the Bible tells us what's the shape of the new heavens and the new earth is going to be either. I don't know. It might be. It might. In fact, you might get your flat Earth then. I just don't think that the Bible gives us those kind of details. So my argument is not a positive one. My argument is not this is how the Bible. These are the verses that teach us that the Bible is a sphere. No, I'm completely open to the Bible could be flat or sphere. I just think that you don't have a positive case. What I'm trying to argue is your positive case is a hyper allegorization of the Bible.
and like I said, I was like typing in so many verses. I was like, I never use those verses. So the only verse you addressed is Matthew 4 and Isaiah 40 and 20, and you kind of agree that it does seem like a circle, and you have the tent representing like a dome or firmament.
Well,
Um,
can I respond to that real quick?
yeah.
So I think I'm being slightly misrepresented there.
Okay.
And let me share my screen. Let me see. Share screen. All right, let me share my screen real quick. And so
Mm-hmm.
maybe um, because we're talking about Isaiah 40 verse 22,
Mm-hmm.
we can be looking at this verse. Okay. So I think this is also a verse that's probably coming to a lot of people's mind. It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to dwell in. Now, again, I think as long as we have the picture of the earth being a sphere, then we look at this and say, oh well, he who sits above the circle of the earth, and then we think, well, okay, that looks a whole lot like the circle of the earth, as in it can be viewed as a circle as this ball, right? And
I
so,
addressed it. I addressed it because in Isaiah, what's the name? Where is it? Had it. What is it? Isaiah 22, verse 17. It actually uses word ball, and we know the difference between ball and a circle.
yeah, okay, so I would say, again, what I would say is, as long as one has the image of a spherical earth, then I could totally see how one could recognize their view in this passage. If you already have the idea of a spherical Earth, then describing that as a circle makes absolute perfect sense, right? And in fact, I would say the until studying for this debate, I always took circle here as referring to the fact that the Earth is a spherical shape. And I think it very much can. I think we're pressing the language to describe that we can't describe a ball as a circle. A ball is a type of circle. A ball is just a three-dimensional circle.
Okay,
So
so if you would show up with with a basketball
yeah,
with some and be like, hey, let's play frisbee with it. I
yeah,
mean,
no.
people look at
Well,
you like you don't
no,
even
but
know the shape. You don't even know that a basketball is a ball, and we know the frisbee is more like a circle.
yeah. So again, I think that if someone said, you know, if we were playing, charades or something, we are playing a game, and I was trying to get you to guess something, and I said, okay, really tall people play it, and we throw something into a basket, and it's circular. I think people would automatically recognize that I'm referring to basketball, and only a smart aleck would say, "Well, it's not circular; it's actually a ball or spherical or something." Like, come on, man. No, I think that we all know that balls are circular in shape. But here's what I'm trying to say: if one has a image already of the Earth being a giant sphere, then when they read this passage, then I could totally understand why they would come away with thinking that this passage is confirming that picture. However, though, if the original audience had no such picture, which they probably didn't, by the way, I don't know what picture they had, but I doubt they had the picture that we all have of the little blue ball thing that we all saw since we were kids, okay? They didn't have that picture. So the question is, what would they probably have understood this? And I think the answer, honestly, is a phenomenological picture. He who sits above the circle of the earth. I'm thinking, what is the circle of the earth referring to? You seem to be thinking it's a frisbee earth. I don't think so. I think the circle of the earth is actually referring to the horizon. When you actually look out there, it looks like the horizon is this dome like shape. Isn't that true? I can ask you a question. I look at the earth and it looks like a dome like shape, right? And that looks like a circle. And so what I think is going on here is this is saying who sits above the horizon, the expanse, who sits above that circle like thing above the earth. It's God. And that's why there's a parallelism. And it says here, who stretches out the heaven like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to dwell in. This is parallelism. The circle of the earth is the same thing as the heaven. It's describing God being over the horizon. So that's how I would take the passage personally.
Okay. The next question. So, do you believe in a literal 24 hour period, 24-hour period creation?
Yes,
Would you agree that if you look at each day, that at least five out of six is focused on the Earth, not the universe or galaxy or whatever?
I would. I mean, from the best of my memory, yes.
So,
It's definitely Earth based.
yeah, yeah. So it focused on the Earth, while if we believe to so-called scientist liars that now the Earth is expanding, right? I mean, the galaxies is expanding, right? Do you believe
Uh,
that the galaxies are expanding now?
I don't know. I think that they're saying that. And I have no reason to deny. I don't have any reason to reject that. But if it is or isn't, I that's a scientific question. I don't. As a theologian, I don't
Yeah, no,
seek to answer.
but no, because theologically, God ceased from creating, and He became a either provider or sustainer, yet he still continue working, because remember Christ says, my
Yeah.
Father is working, therefore I myself also work. But he ceased from creating more stars, he ceased from creating more I mean, notice that it doesn't mention nowhere that the planets, God created the planets, because he created moon, sun, and stars. And also like the planets, I would say, is just the big stars. That's all they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think
You
that
can
this
see, like, if you look at
I
the telescope, you can actually see through them. It's not like in a picture in the astronomy book.
yeah, no,
Would
I
you
mean,
agree
I
with that?
think that um in fact, I found out that many of the quote unquote planets, and I don't deny that they're planets, but many of the things I thought were stars were actually planets, right?
I
That so
agree.
no,
What do
I'm
you mean?
saying like what I'm saying is I look up there and I was like, oh, look at that star, and then I had an app that I looked up and was like, oh, that's Jupiter over there. You know, I never knew that. So I think that's exactly what's going on in Genesis. Is it's describing the things on the earth as you have the sun, you have the moon, and the stars are everything we can see up there. That's not the sun and the moon.
But would you agree, like, five out of the 5 days, let's just say this firmament, like, with some, let's just say firmament is just because I know, like, new interpreters would interpret expanse or firmament into like a space, and
Mm-hmm.
then like sun, moon, and stars, they would like, oh, like, think of this, like, let's just say take out 2 days, like, let's just say let's go with your interpretation, like, or most common people's interpretation. You have in one day God create all the vegetations, right, on the
Yeah,
earth alone. Then God create animals. Then and flying beasts, whatever, birds, creatures. And then God create man and a woman the last day. And notice that it's pretty much earth-centered creation.
yeah,
While think of this, uh, if you believe like in a galaxies, it's almost like you have this, have you seen the picture, this fake picture of galaxies and stuff of this Milky Way
yeah.
supposedly? It's
Yes,
like
I have.
it's supposedly huge. It's like God focusing on the small earth, the third rock from the sun supposedly. And then, oh, but you know what, Jupiter is a lot supposedly bigger, the sun's a lot bigger, and the small tiny galaxy is like in the middle of a huge Milky Way. Versus like the Genesis one, once again, read it for yourself. It focuses on the Earth. It's
Yeah,
Earth centered. So would you agree with
I'm
that?
not. I agree with that. I'm not sure your question though. I mean, I'll just reply to that real quick here.
Mhm.
From I think that the fact that Genesis 1 is Earth's base, Earth centered, Earth focused, doesn't prove that there's those galaxy pictures are fake or whatever.
Oh,
And
so
it doesn't real quick. It doesn't also prove in my mind that anything about, and we're not talking about this per se, of whether the sun revolves around the moon or not, whatever the Earth revolves around the sun or the sun revolves around the Earth. That's not necessary. We can bring that into the discussion, but that's not necessarily germane. In theory, you could have a flat Earth floating, floating around the sun if you wanted to,
Mhm.
or whatever. But yeah, I would just say that the focus of Genesis is certainly on the Earth's perspective, and I think that the all of those galaxies and all those things are really for the perspective of the Earth. Why do the stars exist? To be as signs to the Earth. That's why they existed, because they exist for God's glory and God's entertainment or whatever. They also exist to be created a wonderful metaphor of how many sons the sons of Abraham are going to have, and all these other things. But I don't see how that proves, and that's what was kind of surprising in your presentation. I don't see how what you're getting in Genesis 1 proves that there, or even suggests for that matter, that in fact there's a flat Earth. I don't see the connection.
Tournament and Earth centered.
I don't see how that it suggests a flat Earth.
Okay, but some maybe I should have more focused on firmament, but firmament is like a dome, just like with some uh like tent over the earth. But if you're talking about, I mean, it's pretty much earth-centered creation, but then other verses, and to me, like Isaiah 40, that's like the most clearest one.
So
Um,
if the with
if you want to summarize Isaiah 40, that's the
well
clearest
the
verse.
could it does it necessitate does God being Earth centered
Yes,
nece- okay, it
it,
does
it does.
necessitate
Yes, it
that
does.
the Earth is flat.
Yes.
God could it be Earth centered and the Earth not be flat? This is
With
your
some
time to question. Go ahead. I'm just
yeah,
this is
yeah.
just thoughts that are coming in my mind.
What's the name? I think. Could you? Can I show another slide? Like. Where is that? Oh, yeah, here we go. Do you see like what's some? Think of this. Which one is actually Earth centered, and which one? Okay, if you believe that what's some that the Earth is a third rock from the what's some sun, and Genesis 1 teaches that. Press one. If you believe that the on the right hand side, and this is what Genesis 1 teaches, press 2, because notice it is the earth centered. It has to be, because like I said, at least 4 days out of out of 6 days creation, it is earth centered.
Yeah. So can you put those pictures up again while we're looking at that? Okay. So I wish we could zoom in a little bit more.
You can
So
find this on what's some
no, no,
just
no. It's fine. You just go back to the picture, please. So the thing is, in my mind, is really what the Bible is God center number one, and
uh-huh.
also
But
it's
in
the
creation
reason,
wise,
and even creation. The reason why it's quote unquote Earth center is because it's focused on humanity that lives on Earth, right? I think you can very clearly see that that Earth is a very very special place and whatever. I don't think. I mean, as far as option number one, see, it's kind of interesting you were formed in saying this because here's the thing: God can do whatever He wants, right? I mean, I want you
uh-huh.
to think about this. That if let's say number one is true, who are you to question God? Who are you to say I prefer drawing number two over drawing number one? I mean, if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. And I don't see anything about Genesis 1 that's focused on humanity that says, hey, I want you to draw picture number two. I don't even see anything about drawing any pictures in Genesis 1. I don't see him saying, hey, I want you to draw this picture.
What's some regards to the what's some going back to the like conspiracy theory worldwide.
Yeah.
uh we just had this conspiracy theory worldwide in 2019 December, right?
Okay.
And I mean, it's as far as I know, only what's the name, Brazil did not go along with this whole corona mandates and stuff like that. So I just wonder what some do you still think that, or even like let's just say Vietnam War, do you believe that the narratives that the Vietnamese attacked the ship of
The sheep?
Americans, the ship, the battleship?
Oh, the battle. Are you talking about with
Vietnam War.
World War II?
No, Vietnam War.
Yeah, I'm not even. I don't even remember. I think are you talking about Pearl
Vietnam
Harbor?
War. You don't know the Vietnam War?
I know the Vietnam War, but I'm not sure what you mean by attacking a ship. But
No, no, no. The cause, the what's the name of the
Pearl
incident?
Harbor?
Huh?
You talking about Pearl Harbor?
No, not per. Vietnam. Yeah,
Well, I
Vietnam.
before you even Google this, no, I don't even watch television. Okay, I don't watch YouTube. Well, I do watch YouTube. I watch Christian
No,
shows.
that's a basic. What's the name?
I'm not gonna know any conspiracy theories. To be
No,
completely
no, no.
honest, I
But
don't.
like, but I mean, like, do you know the cause of Vietnam War?
No.
Okay. Okay, but the point is this, that there's so many lies being told. Like, for example, Americans celebrate Christmas, right? I mean, not Christmas, Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
um do you believe that it's truly like, hey, those people got together and afterwards nothing happened? They didn't kill the colonials didn't kill Native Americans few years later? Like, it's just always been
Well,
hunky dory?
no. I mean, one, I don't think that's necessarily what's being told. Um, I don't. I think what's being told is that there was a celebration at one point. But the thing is, for me, about that is, um, I don't have a problem with conspiracy theories per se, right? I
Okay.
mean, there could be there very well could be a conspiracy theory. What I need to be shown though is before I jump on the bandwagon that the entire world is lying to me about the face of the earth, I need to make sure that the Bible is in fact teaching that. right? I need convincing evidence that the Bible is teaching that, and then I can jump on the bandwagon. But if I don't get convincing evidence, no, I don't just generally think if the world is telling me something, like the world's telling me take aspirin, but when I get headaches, I actually think it's poison going to kill me. And I don't think you do either, right? There has to be some
Mhm.
sufficient reason for me to distrust them.
Mhm.
Are they holistically trustworthy? No. But to think that they're lying completely holistically about the shape of the earth is kind of a stretch, and you're really going to have to show me biblical text for me to hold on to that.
Okay. So
We
okay,
got
but
about 8 seconds.
okay. You know what? I'll let this 8 seconds slide, and you can question me now.
Okay. All right. So for my time, so you questioned me about Matthew 4:8. You seem
Uh-huh.
to find great humor, and my thought that this was a visionary experience, or at very least a supernatural experience of transportation, and then he had a visionary experience after that. So, do you believe that the devil actually literally walked Jesus on a very high mountain? Let's just start there. How
Yeah,
did the devil and Jesus get on that very high mountain?
he could transport them or something.
Do you think he transported him with animals? They went on a jog, marathon.
I don't know. It doesn't say it. He just
Okay. Do
got
you
to the.
believe this was a normal walking session?
I don't know. It doesn't say. It just says Satan took him to the highest high mountain.
A very high mountain. So,
Yep.
what high mountain on in that local area that they could have traveled to could possibly have shown them all of the kingdoms of the earth?
You know what? That's a good highest mountain in Israel. That would be Mount Tabor. Mount Tabor is about 18 kilometers west of Sea of Galilee, and how high it is? Elevation is, I think it's feet. 1,886 feet
Okay.
elevations.
What if so? Is it likely that that elevation, 1,800 feet or whatever, 80 feet, that he could see every single civilization on the face of the earth? He could see all the way into Japan, Tokyo, and he could
Uh-huh.
see all the way into South America.
Hmm.
Is this what you're suggesting? That
Yeah,
if you think so,
yeah.
okay, and you think that's the authorial intent of this passage? The authorial intent
I
is
mean,
for us to
otherwise, why would
conclude.
he? If it would be like a television, like in a Batman movie, that like remember, like he just sits underground in a television, and he can observe everybody on television. That would
Okay,
be pointless. That would be
what
pointless. Go up to the high mountain in the first place.
was there television in the background of Jesus' audience?
No.
Would anybody be thinking of a Batman reference
No,
when
but I mean,
they read?
everybody would think that he went up to the probably highest mountain either in Israel or in the world, and they able to see because
So you think that the average person in this time actually believed that if they got on a high mountain too, that they could see every single civilization on the face? You think that that's
if
the ancient
the
man believed
telescope,
that?
I mean, I think they already had like small telescopes, but it was not as high with some magnification
Does the
as in
text
that
say
time.
anything about Jesus using magnification?
No, he could have
So
perfect vision. So I mean,
the
but
uh,
they could
the
see all the kingdoms of the earth. They could see it.
does Jesus perfect vision is perfect vision 2020?
In a human sense, I think so.
Did
I'm not sure. I'm
Jesus
not a doctor.
so are you suggesting that Jesus in his humanity could look and see all the planets and all the stars?
It doesn't say all the planets and all the stars. Where
But I
does it?
mean, if he had perfect vision, it sounds like you're saying perfect vision,
It
even
says all the
deity vision.
kingdoms. Okay.
I'm saying you're saying perfect vision as in deity vision. So
Okay.
isn't it true?
Yeah.
Are we supposed to also conclude that Jesus could look up and tell you the remotest asteroids and planets? And I mean, is this almost sounds like the Gnostic version of Jesus, where Jesus was like healing, birds when they was like 5 years old or something? I mean, where does the text say anything about Jesus having perfect vision, or that Jesus used some magnification to see the planets? I mean, to see the kingdoms.
I don't know what you. I mean, it doesn't say it. Okay, it doesn't say that in the text. However, in other texts, remember in Gospel of John, he knew all men and he knew what was in their heart.
Okay. All right. So next text, Daniel chapter 4, when there's this, now this is certainly a visionary.
I
This is
never
a
used that.
dream.
I
That's
agree. This has nothing to do with the flat Earth.
okay. Well, I'll just ask and
Okay.
see. So in the visionary experience of the dream, there was a tree that reached to heaven. It was visible to the end of the whole earth.
Hmm.
So this is a vision. This is a dream-like experience, but it's still the
Yep.
idea that there's a tree that reaches up to
Hmm.
so high in the heavens that is visible to the earth. So, do you believe because the earth is flat that if there was a tree that reached up into the heaven, everybody could look up there and see it?
Well, Tower of Babel. I mean, you can say the Tower of Babel would, but this specific verse from Daniel chapter 2, I would never use that verse.
Well, Daniel 4.
So
But I'm saying though, if there were a tree that could reach all the way up into the heaven, do you believe because the earth is flat, somehow people could see this tree from all the ends of the earth?
if this,
Just
tr-
just
I
because the earth
mean,
is
I
flat,
would
they
not.
could suddenly see a tree that reaches to the top of the heaven. They would all be able to see that tree. Do you believe that?
Well, I mean, if there would be a tree, but like I said, Tower of Babel, they was trying to build. There was some the tower all the way up into heaven, and this Daniel. That's why I would not use that passage because it's prophetic.
Okay. Revelation 1:7. So I think, are you a preterist?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe, are you a full preterist?
No, I'm a partial.
So,
I'm a Linus partial prayerist, and I would say I think that's Revelation chapter 1 referring to the 70 AD because even those people who crucified Christ. So if you think if it is referring to the second coming of Christ, then I would have to ask you: does people who are already in hell they would be resurrected in order to see the second coming of Christ? And answer would be no, because they already in hell, and of course there would be great white throne of judgment.
okay.
Therefore, I would never use that verse in the first place.
We could have a wonderful discussion about that verse, but I don't want to get sidetracked. So, if that verse isn't talking about the second coming, does any verse in the
70 AD,
Bible,
70 AD.
if that verse doesn't refer to the second coming, is there any verse in the Bible that does refer to the second coming?
Oh yeah,
Okay, what passage refers?
Second Thessalonians chapter 1, Second Peter chapter 3, First
Okay,
Corinthians chapter 15, with some
okay, that's good.
Revelation chapter 20.
Okay, okay. So, in any of those passages, do you believe that every eye shall see him, or do
With
you
some
believe some people won't see him? Some people
Yeah,
will
some
have no
people will not
idea.
see. Yeah, some
Some
people will not see him
some
because
people will have no idea that Jesus. So Jesus, right
they
now,
already will be in hell, because many people will be already in hell, and he will. And after death there is a judgment, and
well,
after the
no, no.
judgment,
I'm
hell of
talking
heaven.
about people who are alive. So
Uh-huh.
is it possible? I just want to make sure. Is it possible that Jesus right now could be in Israel and I
Uh-huh.
not know it? Jesus right now is in Israel and I have no idea. Is that possible?
Oh, it's impossible.
Is it? I'd be raptured up, right?
Yeah, I believe like in it's pretty much simultaneously the rapture and the second coming, like in the First Corinthians chapter
Yeah.
15, in a blink of an eye. It's not 7 years; it's like literally less than a second. So,
Yeah, so I would be
uh,
raptured up. So there's no
yep,
way as a believer I
yep.
wouldn't know. But as an unbeliever, so now, believers are all raptured up with Jesus.
Hmm.
So an unbeliever has no idea that he's still sleeping in the bed. He has absolutely no idea that Jesus has come.
Oh no, he'll be definitely no, because flame and fire will. Well, he'll probably get burned by the fire because, as far as I can tell, it'll be like quick instant kill,
So
like a
they
nuclear
will
bomb
not
on everybody.
respond. They will not respond the way that people respond in Revelation 7. They'll say, "Woe is me, the wrath of the lamb has come." They'll just
Yeah,
all of a
because I would
sudden,
say yeah, because I would say that's the 70 AD, because
yeah.
Hosea and Matthew, because Christ says specifically to the high priest, "Behold, you will see me riding on the clouds." That's specifically referring to the 70 AD.
Okay, but so you're saying that people are going to be in the bathtub, all of a sudden they're going to be burned up as a crisp. They had
Yeah,
no idea
just
that the
like a
second coming happened.
nuclear bomb. Just think of like nuclear bomb worldwide.
So they have no idea that this happened because of Jesus.
No, no, no.
No,
I mean,
no idea.
no, they will know. I mean, you are burned with fire. You will know it, but you know what I mean. It's kind of
How
like
will you? So this
it's
guy's
like
in
a
a
big
the
shot.
guy's in a bathtub,
Uh huh.
right? He's in a bathtub. He's in the bathtub. Next thing you know, fire's bursting through his door, burning him to crisp. How does he know that has anything to do with Christ? How does he? I
Uh
mean, seriously, you're in the bathtub. Next
huh.
thing you know, you're burned up to a crisp within a second. How do you know that that explosion had anything to do with Christ?
I don't know what's the diff. I mean,
It sounds like he doesn't, is what I'm saying. It sounds like, but it sounds
yeah.
like the Bible to me suggests that everybody will know that the second coming of Christ has happened. It's not
Okay.
this. It's not this event that will catch people. Not that it will catch. It will catch people with surprise, but they will in fact know that the second coming of Christ. And it sounds like to me you're suggesting that they won't. All right, let
Okay,
me.
maybe okay. Let's wait for the Second Thessalonians chapter 2 when a man of sin will rebuild the temple first. How about that? And then he will proclaim to be a god, and then Christ comes in and kills everybody. Of course,
Well, yes, but that doesn't show that they actually know that Christ has come back. And anyways, okay, let's go to the different passage. Psalm 104. He set the earth on its foundation so that should never be moved. Do you believe that the earth has literal foundations?
honestly, like I would not use that psalm as well because, like I said, like you acknowledge as well, and I acknowledge that lots of psalms is prophetic or allegorical. That's why I'm kind of I wanted to use it, but at the same time, it's kind of like maybe maybe not. So I would say I don't know. I would not, but I would not specifically, like I said, I would not use certain Bible verses to prove flat Earth because it's kind of like a 50-50 because it's prophetic or allegorical language.
Okay, so you do agree that he set the earth on its foundations. That this does not necessarily mean that we can find a cornerstone on the earth,
It
right?
may or may not. I'm not sure about that verse.
So, okay. So even with someone who believes in flat earth, they can recognize that the earth has foundations very well might be just describing the earth as a building like structure without actually trying to tell us that there's some kind of foundation stone down there, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so you said that most of the times that the Bible, when it says that the earth has four corners, most of the time that referred to the land of Israel. Does
Yeah.
the land of Israel literally have four corners? Can we
It,
find four corners on the land of Israel?
if you just look at the map of
Hmm.
Israel, like the what's some the king's time, like King of David or King of Solomon, if you can pull this one up,
Let me see.
and we see north, south, east, and west.
Did you have something?
I'm sorry. Let me see. Map.
Oh, I
Map.
can pull one up.
Okay, yeah.
That's fine. Let me pull this. Let me see here. Sorry. Let's see. All right. So here is a map. Oh, I don't know why. I don't know if people can see that, but here's a
Hmm.
map of
I mean, it's not, of course, perfect
here's a map of
square, but
Israel. It
you
doesn't
can.
look like a square at all. It
Hmm.
looks like a dagger. So
Yeah,
where are the four? I mean, so I have one corner here.
north, east, west, south.
So maybe one here, two, and then like, up. Is this a corner? I mean, so like, wouldn't
It's
a
just a general. It's just a general term for Israel. Like if you look at, like I said, uh, God gave Old Testament or Old Covenant specifically to Israel, and I forgot which verse. Let me try to find it. Sheba
but okay, so would you
came.
agree though
Mhm.
that this shape that looks like some kind of ice pick, there is no four corners for an ice pick. Four corners refer to a rectangle slash square like shape, right?
Yeah, that's why I would not use this verse specifically. There's four corners. There we go. There we go. Matthew 12:42. The queen of the south, referring to Sheba, who came from with some Ethiopia. The queen of the south will rise up with this generation at the judgment and will condemn it because she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and behold, something greater that Solomon is here. So, ends of the earth, I would actually translate ends of the country. So
The ends
sometimes,
of the country?
yeah,
What country?
country of Israel. She came from Ethiopia.
Is Ethiopia the country of Israel?
No, no, outside the ends.
The ends of the country?
Yeah,
The ends of the earth means ends of the country?
no, no. I would substitute the word earth and put down the ends of the country to hear the wisdom of Solomon.
What justification would you have to translate earth as country instead of land? So I understand
Just
that
look it
the
up
word
on an
gay could be
eSword.
land,
Yeah,
or the word gay could be land or earth here, but why would ends of the land? They're not. He's not even in the land. See, the ends. He's not.
no, she came
She,
from Ethiopia,
which is a
ends of
different
the
country.
country. Yeah, exactly,
It's
exactly.
okay. So why would that be the ends of the land? That's outside of the land.
That's how people talked back then. I mean,
Okay. Okay. So would you agree this is not literal though?
yeah, I agree.
And this is the same kind of language that we find throughout the Bible that a lot of flat earthers try to use as somehow suggesting that the earth is flat.
Exactly. That's why I would say, hey, earthers, do not use this ends of the earth or four corners of the earth. Do not use those verses to
Okay.
prove that that the earth is flat. That's
So,
why I
but okay.
said
But
specifically in
so I
there.
want to go back here. So when you said that the earth was flat, um, and you said there were certain passages that do refer, certain rare passages that do refer to the four corners of the earth, and actually do refer to the earth, not the land. How do you
Revelation
jive?
20. Look, for
Uh,
example, Revelation 20, I think that's referring to the
okay.
whole earth.
So how do you understand that when you had a frisbee disc Earth? Do frisbee disc circles have four corners?
Well, because Book of Revelation is allegorical for most of the part.
So what does it mean there when it says four corners?
The whole earth.
And this
And
is a figurative description of the Earth, right?
yeah,
It's
exactly.
not to be taken literally.
Exactly.
Okay, so you
The
agree that
same
four
thing in
you
Revelation chapter 1, every eye shall see him, even those who crucified him.
okay?
So
So
that's
every
why,
eye literally was not going to see 70 AD, right?
huh?
Every
Yeah,
Jewish eye was
every
not going to
eye who
literally see
pierced.
70.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like, for example, First Corinthians 11, Christ is ahead of every man, and the man is ahead of his wife. We know that every man does not refer to every man; it refers to truly born again believers and believers only.
Okay. Um, how? Okay, so you used tried to use Joshua 10:12
Yes.
as proof of the flat Earth, right?
Yeah.
So it says in Joshua 10 that the sun shall stand still at Gibeon and
Mm-hmm.
the moon in the valley of Ai,
Yep.
right? Now here's a let me so was the sun literally in the valley of Gibeon?
Mm-hmm.
It was. So the sun was literally in the valley of Gibeon?
Or I should say above whatever, above the valley of Gibeon.
Okay,
The
was the moon literally in the valley of Ai?
uh, above the what's some but would you agree that the whole book of Joshua is pretty much literal? There's not one prophecy in the book of Joshua. In the end of the Joshua, this piece of land belongs to this guy, that piece of land belongs to that guy. That guy promised his daughter, what's some I forgot her name, if you kill this king I will give my daughter. And this guy killed, I think it was like a almost like an uncle, killed the king and got I guess his niece as a
Yeah, but I guess I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out though.
book
Uh,
of, I mean, would you
I'm
agree,
trying.
book of Joshua, there's not one verse in book of Joshua can be prophetic.
I'm not sure about that. I guess I'm still trying to figure out though how that this amazing event of God extending the day, it looks like He made one day extend it to a whole day, which sounds like it was a 48 hour day, or at least it sounds like a 48 hour day, or very least a 24 hour day, something of the sort, something miraculous that instead
Hmm.
of the moon coming on, that the day just continues so they could kill these people. How does
Mhm.
this prove that the Earth is flat? I mean, what is
Because,
the
because
how
the
does this prove at
location.
all that the Earth is flat?
I mean, if once again, if you believe that the sun is millions and millions miles away,
Yeah.
and the moon is like I forgot what's the moon, the moon distance, I forget, moon uh, distance.
Well, let's just say it's a couple million miles away too. I don't understand how this proves that the Earth is flat
Oh, there we go.
because it's a miracle.
238,900 miles supposedly. Because there would be like that would be such a ridiculous statement saying, well, the sun was right there at the with some at the valley of what's the name, no at the Gibeon, and the moon at the valley of Ajalon. So that would be such a silly statement to make. Where I mean, Book of Joshua, like I said, you find me one verse which is prophetic in whole book of Joshua. There's not one verse in it. It's all literal. It's for a
Okay,
reason God
so
put
wait
down.
a second. I thought you just said that you agree the sun was not literally in Gibeon.
Well, you can
What does
say
that even mean
about
that the
the
sun was
Gibeon,
literally in Gibeon? I mean,
probably
the sun. If
right
the
about
sun is above, if so, wait. How small do you think the sun is? Do you think the sun is actually this tiny little ball that could be on top of a valley?
I'm not sure about the size of
I
the
mean, wouldn't
sun.
the
I
sun
don't know, but
probably
it's not as
be
big
pretty
as
large?
people. No, well, they lies that the sun is super big and stuff, but I don't think it is.
Okay, but do you think it's bigger than a valley?
I don't know.
It's bigger. You know,
Honestly, I
it's
do not
possibly.
know.
You're saying that you think this verse is telling us. So if you would not only argue the flat Earth, but you can now say, I know the size of the sun. It's the size of Gibeon because it says that it's still at Gibeon, which implies that it couldn't have been bigger than Gibeon, and it must have stood still right above Gibeon. So so the sun was literally the size of Gibeon. Is that how you want to take the passage?
I guess so. I mean, yeah, sure.
Okay, and
I'm not sure.
the
I
moon
mean,
is the
I don't
size of
know.
the
Like
valley
I
of
said, I have not
Ajalon.
fully studied the science behind the flat Earth, so I cannot really make
Okay.
much of a
But
scientific
do you
flat
think
Earth
that
claim.
do you think this is actually reasonable? Do you think that the author or intent is to tell us the size of the sun and the size of the moon? Is that really what this passage is saying, or is it really saying that the Earth? And we look at the sun, right, and we see the sun moving it throughout the sky. Doesn't it seem like what was happening was that the sun was about to set? It was going. You see the sun going through the horizon, and Gideon said, he prayed. Or Joshua, should I say? He prayed and said, "Let the sun set. Let the sun stand still where it is." Not literally, but where it is in the sun, where they're seeing it in the sky, because it's about to set. We only got a few more hours, but if you do this miracle, we can continue to kill our enemies. Isn't that more likely than trying to tell us the size of the sun?
I mean, you have to read into. I mean, as far as I can tell, whole book of Joshua, there's not one verse that is prophetic or allegorical. Everything in book of Joshua, I read it multiple times, I listened multiple times. It's literal.
So if I could find, so okay, let's say the whole book of Joshua
It's literal.
was literal. There was not a single example of metaphor except one, and there was one passage in Joshua that says, like we see in Isaiah, that the moons were clapping, and the trees were dancing. You would then, because everything else in Joshua was literal, you would then conclude that the trees literally danced.
Well, it's a hypothetical question.
I'm
Like I
saying in that
said,
hypothetical, you discovered that there's one verse in Joshua. Everything else was literal. One verse in Joshua has mountains. Here's the verse in Isaiah 55. You shall go out.
Isaiah, not Joshua.
I know, but here's the
Oh,
verse.
so
You shall
hey, it's
no
for a reason I did not use some verses from Book of Revelation because and some verses from Psalms.
no
I
no. I know.
specifically used
I'm
Joshua
giving you an
10.
example. I'm giving you an example. If you saw this verse in Joshua, you shall go forth in joy and be led forth in peace. Mountains and hills shall break out before you into singing, and trees of the field shall clap their hands. There's actually a song about this. So you read this verse that the mountains and hills shall go out before you, and break forth in singing, and the trees shall clap their hands. And you would say, well, I've done a systematic study of the book of Joshua. I found that there is absolutely no metaphors anywhere else in the book of Joshua. Therefore, I know that the mountains and hills literally started singing, and the trees literally started clapping their hands. Would you accept that kind of exegesis?
But once again, it's a hypothetical question. It's like it's
In
not
that
even
hypothetical, would you
it's
accept that exegesis?
hypothetical. It's ridiculous. It's like, look, there. Find me one verse in book of Joshua besides Joshua 10. Find me another verse somewhere in book of Joshua where it's metaphorical or allegorical or prophetic or whatever. You will not find one. It's for a
Okay.
reason.
So if I
God,
find
like,
okay, if I think the answer is no, you would not take it literally. That's why you say it's ridiculous. I think also if I find you one single, so are you telling me you're willing to give up this entire proof text and abandon this whole line of reasoning about Joshua and the sun standing still supporting the flat earth if I can find a single example in the book of Joshua of anything that's hyperbolic, allegorical, metaphorical, or anything of the sort? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, sure.
You will. So
Yeah,
your
it's
interpretation is
fine.
completely contingent on whether there's somehow a metaphoric verse anywhere in the book of Joshua.
Yeah, because each book determines what some how it should be interpreted. Like I said, if you it's like, for example, Genesis, right? Would you agree some verses in Genesis is allegorical?
Yeah.
Like for
To
example,
me,
okay, go ahead.
go ahead. No, no, go ahead.
Like for example, the dream of Joseph, right?
Yeah.
The sun and the moon should bow down, and like 11 stars should bow down. It's like, and then he gives them explanation. And then what's some two with this cupbearer and what's his name? Cupbearer and bread basket, something to do with
Yeah.
bread.
Yeah.
Bread baker. Here we go, baker. It's like they both had the dreams, and he would actually give them interpretation. However, in Genesis chapter 1, it's literal 6-day creation. And
Okay.
when people trying to build the tower to reach the heaven, I mean, you gotta look at the context. And like, but when the whole book of Joshua, like I said, it's
Well,
not
okay, but
one
again,
one verse.
to me, brother, what I would do is if I found a verse that was obviously hyperbolic, like I gave you the examples of mountains clapping and all of this
It's from
sort. I
Isaiah,
that's because
Joshua, book of
I
Joshua.
understand, but the point is, I would not need to do an extensive study on Joshua to ask myself have I found any figurative language in the book of Joshua before I would immediately recognize that that's figurative. And so, real quick on this passage before we go, we have about 2 minutes here. Um, real quick here. Is there any way that God could possibly make the sun stand still, at least phenomenologically, to make the daylight continue without, in fact, the earth being flat? Is God incapable of making the daylight continue until Joshua can kill all his enemies if the earth is flat? Could God say, look, Joshua, I wanted to answer your prayer and make the daylight continue, but guess what? The earth isn't flat, so even though I'm God, I just can't make the sun stand still. Is that your position?
Uh,
Does this
well, I mean, you
verse,
can say it's a miracle, but once again, miracle that it's never been done before.
has it ever been done since?
No, as far as I mean, as far as I can tell from the Bible,
is this not a miracle?
it is
Regardless of
absolutely
whether
a
the earth is
miracle.
flat or not, it is not a miracle.
It's a miracle. Absolutely, it was a
Okay,
miracle.
so is the omnipotent God incapable of doing this if in fact the earth is not flat?
But that's like once again hypothetical questions. It's
It's not really
like what
hypothetical.
if?
It's just saying, is
It's
this a
like what
necessary
if? What
deduction?
if? I mean, it's just like, I mean, what if? What if? It's like such a hypothetical statements. It's just like, who cares? It's like some things
Okay.
should be like, hey, this is what the Bible teaches, and like for example,
I think you're
if
answering that is yes. All right, so let me just ask you one quick thing about Isaiah, that famous that verse that it seems that you put a lot of weight on Isaiah 40 verse 22 that we looked at. Okay,
yes,
um, No, actually, you know what? Let's go to Philippians. Let's go to Philippians 2:19,
Uh-huh.
which you also pointed to here. Philippians 2:9. Therefore, God has highly exalted him and bestowed on him a name that is above every name, so that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth. Now, what time frame is this?
That's first century.
So
He
every
writes
knee so
to the
so
Greeks.
every knee has bowing to Jesus
Uh-huh.
refer to something that's already happened. This has already
Uh,
happened.
mm-hmm.
This has already happened. When did
Okay.
this happen? When did every knee should bow in heaven, on earth, and under earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God? So when did every tongue confess that Jesus is Lord to the glory of God? We have 15 seconds. Has this happened?
I'm not sure.
Do you think this has happened already? This already happened.
I believe every knee will bow and every tongue will confess when they die. Every person will die either in this life, with some true believers will bow down and confess Jesus Christ is King of Kings and Lord of Lords, or people who died and end up in hell, or people who die and end up in heaven.
Okay. All right. I want to ask you more about that, but that's our time. So, um, now we're going to open it up to the live Q&A. So if you have a question for me or Alexei, please put your question in. Let me go back here. Let me ask this question. uh, Timothy asked the question. Genesis 1:14 says the lights, including the sun, are partly for seasons and years. Round Earth heliocentrism. Explain sun's relations to seasons slash years. How does flat Earth relate the lights to seasons slash years? So I don't know if you know, I understand the question, but Alexi, you want to take a stab at that?
How does um, actually? I mean, it's a little bit scientific, and I did kind of want to keep it more biblical instead of scientific. But I remember like when I was just was kind of curious about flat Earth. That was like the last drill in the army. I was part of Army Reserves, and I was assigned 2 hours. One was at 9 p.m. till 10 p.m., and then the last shift from I think it was like a 4 a.m. till 5 a.m. And interesting part is that if the Earth is spinning, supposedly spinning super fast and stuff, you would not be able to see the same stars just within like 3 hours. It should have been moved, but I know it's like I said, it's more scientific than biblical. But if you go outside, like look at those stars, look at some of the constellations that you can see, and if the Earth supposedly spinning 360 degrees within one day, and let's just say um, in a what 6 hour period, that's what 90 degrees. The Earth should have been spinned at least 90 degrees right there. You would not be able to see the same stars, or you should not be seeing the same constellations at the same location.
Yeah, for me, let me read the question again. Genesis 14 says the lights, including the sun, are partly for seasons and years. Round Earth heliocentrism explains sun's relation to season and years. Honestly, I don't know. Um, I mean, I'm sure somebody
Hey,
else
like I
does.
said, like I
I
said, if you want to know more about scientific part, Eric Dubay is guy to go to.
Yeah, I mean, I would say from on my side, Google that. I mean, and that's not to be tongue in cheek, but
Uh-huh.
seriously, I'm not a scientist. I think it's something people say the fact that. Something about the Earth spinning and going around the sun creates the season and year and whatever. They have their explanations. All I know is it gets cold predictably and hot predictably and changes seasons predictably. I don't actually know how all that works. I know it has something to do with the Earth spinning around the sun and moving, I guess, closer and farther away or something of the sort. But exactly how that all works, I don't know. I really don't think that's the point of Genesis, is to be explaining all of this. I think the point of Genesis is to say, hey, I created the sun to be the primary light during the day, the moon to be the primary light during the night, and I created the stars to function to give us information about signs in the heavens and all that other kind of stuff. And so, good question, but I'm sorry I couldn't answer that more fully from the scientific level. Let's go to another question. JD, ask him if he's willing to go up on SpaceX and if you saw the curvature of the Earth.
Absolutely. Give me the tickets. I'll go to the space as quick as possible, please.
So, if you, um, here's David Lewis kind of following up on this. Um, would he repudiate flat Earth? So
Yeah,
if you went,
as long as, but
if
once
you
again,
went up there,
yeah, if I went up there, sure, and if I see it's with some, but the problem is this. Have you been to like a circus or some, I call them I call this like entertainment place, like where you have like a laser tags and stuff like
mm-hmm.
that, and you get in a car supposedly, but you still at the same place, and it supposedly like drive you around and stuff like that, like you know what I mean, like
Yeah,
it's like the problem today is this: how do you even know that those astronauts can be in this type of game?
yeah,
how
but
how do I know? I want to
let's just
see, like,
say,
I want to, if I would have like a, let's just say, a chair, and like I can look straight forward from the time I'm with some ascending till I get to the, all the way up in the space. Then we'll talk about, how about we get to the moon. By the way, there's no how about we get to the moon? I would like to see that.
so okay, I'm just saying though,
But if I
if in
have,
fact you got on a spaceship
yeah,
and you felt yourself going into the air
yeah,
and
not
you
well, but
look
I want to see it too, because like I said, you
and
can
you look out the
check it.
window
Yeah,
and you have your wife or significant other or even me sending you a video saying, look, I'm seeing your spaceship go up, here it is, I'm watching it fly right in front of me, you're looking down and seeing it fly up.
hmm
Next thing you know, you find yourself on the moon, you're bouncing up on the moon looking at the earth and seeing the curvature of the earth. Would you continue to just say, I know the earth is flat and I must be high on drugs? I
No,
mean,
I would say I'm a part of the Hollywood production movie or something. No, because think of
so
this:
there's no, that wouldn't convince you. That
check out
wouldn't
the
convince you.
fake check out the fake moon landing, because you can easily, especially with modern technology, you can fake, in my opinion, even the your so-called reality. Just like go to what's it called, man, I forget this place. One time somebody invited me, I was like, okay, but it was like a with some laser shooting, and this, you get in a cart and you like go around, I guess, crazy town and shoot people and stuff. I forgot the name of it,
Yes, but okay. Are you
but
again?
you, but
Are
you get
you
the point. You can be tricked by Hollywood as well,
okay?
production.
But again, under this scenario, you are
Uh-huh.
an actual astronaut. You find
Mhm.
yourself on a rocket. You
Yeah.
feel yourself clearly going up. You're looking down the entire time, seeing yourself go up into the sky. People are giving you footage from below of you flying in the sky. Next thing you know, you are on the moon. You are getting off in your spaceship. You're bouncing around in the moon, looking at the curvature of the Earth.
You
Are
won't
you
be able
going?
to bounce because you can see through the moon. Like if you
Okay,
one day,
let's just say you were on the moon. Okay, you're
it would be
telling me if
impossible.
you
But
were on the moon, you would just say, "I'm actually part of Hollywood. I'm
I
actually part of."
probably would say that too. Yeah, I would
You
honestly,
would.
I would be probably like, I'm part of the Hollywood production, and they probably put me on some ship, because if you see like some of the space shuttle go supposedly go up and then like curves,
So
so I probably
basically,
would be like, wait, I need to get uh, independent space people. But I would love to, yeah, sure, sign me up, let me get in a
but it
rocket,
would be
let's go.
useless. You're saying, right? So is there okay? Is there any empirical evidence that would actually convince you that you could physically see the Earth is actually round, is there no? I mean, if we could literally right now get on a car and fly into outer space, and we could
No,
fly over to Mars and look at the Earth from Mars and could see that
you
it
don't
was
have
a
enough
curvature.
gas. You know how far the Mars is. You
If
don't
we
have
could,
enough fuel.
if we became Marvel heroes that could fly around the planets and we flew off the planet and looked at the curvature of the Earth, are
Yeah,
you
like
saying
Back
that
in the
there is
Future, like
no?
Hollywood movie Back in the Future.
I'm asking you, Alexei, is there no empirical evidence that could even possibly ever convince you that the Earth is actually not flat?
No, probably if you sign me up tomorrow, let's go to the space. But I need at least I don't know how many 100 people just to verify that hey, they did not give me some drug, they didn't took me some to Hollywood studio and stuff. If we can verify that, let's go. Let's see it.
Okay, so we do drug tests. You fast for 40 days. Well, not 40 days because then you say you hallucinate. You fast for 3 days before, and then you are saying if you did land on the moon and saw the
Uh-huh.
curvature of the Earth, you would repudiate your views. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right.
But which will never happen. But okay,
Okay.
hypothetical question.
All right. Amber Punk said, "I challenge any flat earthers to prove they believed in the flat Earth before 2015." So maybe you can explain why this comment has come, what happened in 2015, and is that true? Did you believe in the flat Earth since 2015?
Let's see. When I moved to Colorado, that was like a year. So how long I've been in Colorado? 2000. Trying to remember when did I move to Colorado? I think it was. Hmm, let me see. Let me look up my resume. When did I move to
And do
Colorado?
you know why they're asking what is the
I have
connection
no.
between?
I have no idea why is it 2015. Um, resume, let's see. When did I move? The CDL.
Okay, I mean it's
I have
fine.
no idea why is
Okay, I don't know. Maybe there's a movie that came out or something. All right, let's go to another question. Timothy asks, when you watch a ship sail off into the horizon, why does it appear to sink into the ocean rather than just continue to shrink? Does it stop being visible even when you're using a telescope?
actually some people did that. Like I said, and they went specifically to the Pacific or Atlantic coast. And you can actually, if you have a really good telescope, you can actually zoom in and see the ship again.
Okay. So this actually goes into one of a scientific question I have for you as I
Uh-huh.
was thinking about the flat Earth. Because again, if it's biblical, I'm going to believe it. I just don't think
And
it's biblical.
oh, we walk by faith and not by sight.
Yeah. So let me ask you. I'm not sure that's about flat Earth to be honest, but
No, but it's everything. Like Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11 verse Hebrews chapter 11.
all right. Let me
Um
ask you this. Let me ask you this real quick. About again about the flat Earth. So, um, if it is true that we are on a flat Earth, right? Then our maps are wrong. Isn't that right?
huh?
If map if it is true that we are on a flat Earth, then the normal maps that we see every day are wrong. Isn't that right?
Well, the what's some actually there's another, like I said, if you go to the Eric DeBase YouTube channel, there's a bunch of scientific stuff. So, like I said, it was specifically more biblical debate rather than
No, I
uh,
know, but I guess this is just a question I have for you,
yeah,
though,
yeah,
just
yeah.
real quick.
Uh-huh.
If in fact map is wrong, right? If in fact the Earth is flat, then the map this is not a correct map of the Earth, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think I had it in a beginning, the flat Earth
Yeah.
map.
So let me pull up flat Earth map. Okay. So it's something.
Yeah, something like yeah, you had it a couple of them. Here we go to your right. No, up. Here we go to your right. Right. Yep.
This one
Like this. Yep.
or this one?
No, no, no. To the right. Here we go. Click on it. There you go. I know it's hard to see,
It's
but you
very.
can
This is very okay. Well, this is very tiny. What I mean,
find. I'm sure there's something.
okay. Let's see if we can. Okay, here. This is good. Um, hope people can. Let me just try to zoom into this. Okay, so here is
Yep.
the flat Earth map. Okay,
Hmm.
and you can see this is the United States. This is Eurasia. This is Africa, and this is South America.
Hmm.
Okay. Now this is a normal map, right?
Hmm. Yep.
So, and we know by going this way, by going west, we can get to Japan.
Uh
And
huh.
so, actually, Alaska, and this right here is Russia. They're actually right next to each other.
Hmm.
And they're, you see that? They're actually right
Hmm.
next to each other according to this map. And the United States is actually really close over here to China and Japan. We'll just have to go slightly over this way, right?
Hmm.
Go this way. Okay. And so the United States is also relatively close to Australia, right? California is really close to Australia. All you have to do is go this way and you can get down here pretty quickly. Now, if you go over to this map, though, look where Australia is. It's actually really far away. Let me zoom into this. Maybe you can see this. Oh, let me zoom out. This is actually California, and look how far Australia is. It's really far away. And so, my question is this: don't you think it would be relatively easy to figure out which map is right by how far it takes to get to Australia?
Yes, actually, like I said, on with some Eric Dubé's channel, there's multiple uh, pilots who would testify. Why would we actually go to Dubai and then to Australia? Like, there's multiple routes that actually pilots themselves would actually
So,
on.
so you're saying that you actually believe. So right now, if people right now book a ticket
Mhm.
to Australia,
Let's
they're
see.
not going to go from
Let me double check.
California.
Okay.
They're gonna go all the way over here somewhere. They're gonna be showing up in China somewhere or something of the sort. They're like, I have no idea why I'm going from California to China to Australia, even though I think I'm supposed to be going. Oh, so according, I mean, think about this. This map would be I'm going from California, and I have no idea why I'm going all the way up to China to suddenly show up to Australia. Well, let me give you a different example. So
Hmm.
here's Australia again, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Well,
so if I were,
actually, according to the Google, once again, it's with some 8,000 miles pretty much away.
Okay, but here's what I'm saying. Look where
Hmm.
Australia is, right down here, and look at Africa. And you say, okay, so what's the closest? Where is Africa the closest to Australia?
Hmm.
Right here,
Hmm.
right? Madagascar. You
Hmm.
see that?
Yep.
Now let's go to this other map. So here's Australia. Where's Africa? It's all the way down here.
Uh
Where's
huh.
Madagascar? It's all the way down here.
Uh
So
huh.
don't you think it would be relatively easy to figure out, huh? If I am in Madagascar, I don't know why the maps are telling me I'm really close, but it actually takes me 35 hours to get over here. But if I'm over here in North Africa, even though it looks like I'm really far away, I can get over to Australia relatively quick. I mean, I hope you see this. It would be pretty easy. Look, if I'm in Egypt, if this map is correct, if it took me longer on a flight from Egypt to get to Australia than it did from Madagascar, don't you think we could easily prove which map is correct?
Well, like I said, as far as what I saw, the with some testimonies of pilots on Eric the Base channel, checking them out because, like I said, I was specifically focused on biblical flat Earth. I'm not that scientifically advanced yet at that point right
Okay,
now.
but can you at least agree with me that for the idiot layman,
Yeah.
right? For the idiot layman, this
Yeah.
seems to be a very easy test. If
Uh huh.
which map is more accurate,
Yep.
this map, which has Madagascar right next to Australia, or
Hmm.
this map, which has Madagascar literally as far as possible from Australia, right?
Okay.
that this will be a very easy test, and we could right now, anybody at home can Google this right now and see if they try to book a flight from Madagascar to Australia, how long it will take, and if they try to book a flight from Egypt to Australia, how long it would take, and if
Okay,
they
so
found
I'm
it was
looking at it right now. Yeah, I'm looking at it
if they
right now.
found, will you agree? If they found it was significantly longer from Egypt than Madagascar, then that would suggest that this map is actually not correct. And in fact, this map is incorrect. Or you'd have to say there's some grand conspiracy that they take you from Egypt and they fly you around in the middle of nowhere for
Mm-hmm.
3 hours just to pretend like it's taking longer,
Uh-huh.
only to finally get you over to Australia, which is way up there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see how like this conspiracy is getting extreme, where people
Yeah.
are? This is getting like extreme conspiracy now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. All right. Now let's see here.
Any biblical question, please?
Okay. Does that bother you at all?
No,
This
I mean,
doesn't.
like I
This
said,
doesn't bother you at all. That not at all. That doesn't. That's just like who there's
I,
nothing about the
after
fact that
Corona nonsense, I could care less about science.
this isn't science. This is travel plans. That
No,
doesn't
but
bother you at all.
after Corona nonsense, I could care less what the scientists say.
Even the travel agents, you could
Um,
care less the fact that it somehow, for some strange reason, according to the map, it takes you 15 extra hours to get somewhere when it's supposed to be right next to each other.
I mean, it would bother me, but I would, uh, like I said, to me, like scientifically, I'm still learning about flat Earth, but uh, like you said in the middle, what's some, yeah, I would focus more on the scriptures. So yeah, Pastor, how do you justify what you say in the Bible based on
Okay.
your modern views?
All right, let's read this. Pastor, how do you justify translating the Bible based on your modern views? The people who wrote the Bible had well known cosmological views and they described the earth accordingly in Scripture. Number one, I would say, I think this is related to me. I
Yeah.
would say that the people of the Bible wrote as they were moved and carried along by the Holy Spirit. And so the Holy Spirit ensured that his word had no error in it. So if they had some wrong beliefs, I believe that the Holy Spirit would have preserved them or given sufficient clues to make even their erroneous beliefs correct. For example, if they had some erroneous beliefs, they thought that something was literal, but it wasn't. I think that God would inspire their writings in such a way that their writings would be clearly described in figurative ways to indicate that even though they had, one conception or whatever, then the actual words that they wrote was a different. But for the most part, I don't think that actually happened. That's just something that I just pulled off the top of my head there. The bottom line is, I think we got to be really careful about trying to figure out what was Adam's cosmological beliefs about about cosmology. I mean, I think what's really scary sometimes is you take the extant heretical people that surrounded Israel and say, therefore, that's what Israel believed. It's very dangerous. Very, very dangerous, right? That's like looking at today's modern atheists and saying, therefore, that's what Christians believe. No, no, no. I think the Bible is what was inspired and what was telling us the truth. And I think the Bible is just really not concerned with telling you to telling you about physical cosmology. The one thing I do agree with Alexei about is there is a three-tier universe described in Philippians, but that is a picture that is supposed to be understood in the brain, but it's not supposed to be drawn out and believe that that's actually the case. I might be wrong about that, but I do not believe that there are people literally in the bottom of the earth suffering in Sheol. I think that's a picture, a description of the realm of the dead is viewed as you die, you're buried, and you go down, you look up, and that's what God showers his blessing from heaven and so forth. So heaven is up and hell or Hades is down. I don't think that actually was, and I don't think people necessarily even thought that that was literally the locations of Sheol and heaven was literally up and literally down. So that's how I would understand it. Alexei, would you like to respond? Answer that question?
Well, I mean, that's the question to you. So
Okay. Um, Let me see. If you guys have any more questions, please let me know. So, what do you think of image bearer says, "Woe to the world because of its for its stumbling blocks, for it is inevitable that stumbling blocks could come, but woe to the man through whom stumbling blocks come. So I think image bearer is pointing this to you, Alexei, and saying that that you're. Do you take this as a
Stumbling
possible?
block. So he's saying that I'm a stumbling block. Once
Do you see
again,
that you could be a stumbling block to people? What you're saying?
uh, personally, in the beginning, I was like, when I heard about flat Earth, I was like, this is a global conspiracy, and it could be too much. But then, besides, I think to me, honestly, like this whole Corona nonsense proved that it literally can be worldwide conspiracy stuff. So honestly, search it for yourself. Study, like I said, Genesis 1, trying to think of why is it Earth centered creation. That's it.
Yeah, I would say I think this is a great question from image bearer. That I think this can certainly be a stumbling block, and I'll just simply say this: um, if if the Earth is flat, then you have Alexei and others to kind of help you and say, hey, the Bible prophesied that the whole time, and so Alexei can accommodate your flat
I'll
Earth
be a
beliefs.
fool for Christ's sake. How about that?
You can
I'll be a
accommodate your
fool.
flat Earth beliefs um,
I
with
mean,
what
first
he
time
thinks.
I heard, I was like, "This is crazy," but then I was like,
Yeah,
once I
what
found
he
out the moon landing is fake and a bunch of other stuff is
yeah.
fake, I
So,
was like,
so I'm just
"Man,
saying that if you are already a flat earther, then Alexei is a great theologian for you, and I will point him into your direction. For the rest of us sober people who believe that the Earth is clearly not flat, or we have no reason to think there's some kind of cosmic conspiracy with flight attendants and travel guides and astronauts and everybody else, I would just say ignore Alexei and go back to continuing to believe the Bible and continue to love him. He's a good guy. But I certainly believe that if he is trying to wed flat earth and saying this is the only Christian view and this is the Christian view and this is what the Bible's teaching, then I do very much think that Alexei could very much becoming a stumbling block for people. I think,
um, I
fortunately,
usually
though, one second, last thing. I think his exegetical case is too weak to really cause people to really say that the Bible absolutely demands this interpretation, let alone even teaches it.
well, I mean, I usually don't bring up so-called great theologians, but because once again, sometimes we may not know enough about what they actually taught. But like, if you just type in Martin Luther flat Earth, I think it's forgot which, um, but interesting things that is pretty much everybody before Copernicus believes that the Earth is flat. I mean, I haven't checked out all the, like, for example, John Calvin's commentaries or whatever, but seems to me like if you just go to Genesis chapter 1, go to, like, for example, I don't know, Geneva Bible or John Gill's Bible, just look it up for yourself. How did they at least interpret those texts?
Yeah, and I'll say this: even if that is the case, I think everyone naturally would think that the Earth is flat, right? I think everyone naturally thinks that the sun revolves around the Earth, and so does the moon, because that's just a common sense phenomenological perspective. But again, it's to me, it's not based on biblical exegesis. It's just what you look out there and you say, okay, I think the Earth is probably flat. But it's not until but when we actually observe that the Earth is flat, then I think we come to realize that we have been reading in our perspective into what the Bible's saying and not exegeting it. So we've been eisegeting, not exegeting. But that's just ultimately my interpretation. Let me quick couple more questions. Let me ask a personal question, and
Mhm.
then a couple more. And we'll be out of here. I'm getting tired. Um, you said something interesting in your debate. You asked the question about the Tower of Babel,
Mhm.
and it sounded like you were suggesting that since God punished the people for trying to create a tower that went into heaven, that how much more so would God never allow man to build a spaceship and shoot up into heaven?
Yep.
Okay. Um, do human beings create sky towers?
Sky towers. What is that?
skyscrapers, these
Oh,
ginormous
yeah,
buildings into the sky
yeah,
to
but
go in.
the intent is never like, hey, I'm gonna reach up to heaven. It's like, no, it's like every single person at that time was trying to build Tower of Babel, and the purpose of it was reaching into heaven.
Okay, so but do
They
you
would
think a
probably
sky?
build.
Do you think that the Tower of Babel was going to reach higher than a skyscraper?
I mean, it was a city technically. It was not just a tower. It was like a city and a tower at the
Yeah,
same
but do
time.
you think that the Tower of Babel itself was probably larger than the skyscrapers of today?
Well, they of course attempted, but I think yeah, it was.
You think this? Wait a second. You think the Tower of Babel was going to be larger than a skyscraper today?
Yeah.
Okay. And the second thing about that is, do you think that the reason God punished the people in the Tower of Babel was because he made some rule never attempt to try to get into outer space?
Well, I mean,
Like
that's why he confused languages.
I'm saying, do you think
I
that
mean,
the
that's like
Bible
a
is telling
permanent.
us there that if you dare try to get into outer space, I'm going to punish you. I'm going to stop you. I'm going to prevent you. Don't ever try to get into heaven.
Mhm.
Don't ever try to get into the second heaven. Otherwise, you're going to get it. Is that what you think that
Oh,
the tower
isn't it
destroyed?
Satan? What trying to Satan do in Book of Isaiah? Behold, oh no, that's actually, I'm sorry, that was the king of Babylon. What's some? I know that's text like
So,
with some.
so even just so I'm just trying to understand. So, even if we could create a spaceship, wait a
Yeah.
second. Didn't you say you would be willing to go to outer space
Well, I mean,
on a
if you can
spaceship?
try, but reality is that all the spaceships are just the Hollywood productions.
I know, but didn't you say you would be willing to get on one?
Yeah, I would willing to go on one.
Would you be willing to help build the Tower of Babel?
No.
So if you would not be willing to build the Tower of Babel 2.0, but you would be willing to get on a spaceship that is attempting to get out of the planet altogether, how is that not inconsistent?
Okay, it is inconsistent. You got me. I agree. So I would not get on a ship because, to me, like I said, space. You got me. No, I mean, yeah, I never thought like, you know, because to me, by the way, you challenged me to that this debate because I usually debate an issue only if I like debate it couple of people like in person couple of times. That's why I want to challenge you on the Christmas debate, which
Okay.
I talked to multiple people and seems like they've been submitted
Okay.
in that
Okay.
debate.
All right. Okay, let me go do a couple more here. Exploring theology. Is Alexei concerned that this flat earth stuff distracts from the clear? I think you kind of answered that, but real quick, do you think it distracts from the clear preaching of the gospel of Jesus Christ and forms stumbling blocks for others?
Some people it is. I actually have to say that it's like, let's just say some truth. Let me give you example. There's a channel called head covering movement, and all they talk about head coverings.
My wife
uh
wears head coverings.
huh
I said my wife wears head coverings.
Second.
My wife wears head coverings.
Okay, yeah, I agree that but some if you look at the original Greek, it teaches one word is for head covering, like a veil, and the
Yeah.
different part, the end of the what some text talks about the hair. So, however, some people are so into the head coverings, they if you just go to their channel, it's like you guys ridiculous. It's like why you bring like a Derek Prince on it? Why do you bring some other false teachers on? It's like, guys, uh, each small issue, even though it can be true, it can be destructive. I agree. Some flat earthers distracted. How about learn about salvation? How about understand who God of the Bible is? How about understand propitiation, things like that? Like, because I do see it can be distraction. Because, like I said, I've seen many so-called biblical flat earthers cannot even explain. or even evangelize what is the gospel or how to evangelize it. So yeah, I definitely agree that it can be distraction, but at the same time could be head covering, which is true, can be distraction. Um, what's the other one, like eschatology? I give you example. Some things I disagree with Ken Gentry. I mean, this guy, one time I remember I was watching a video, forgot where about Nicodemus and being born again is. I was like, dude, you gotta know that like John Gospel of John chapter 3, and he quoted some other stuff, and I'm like, so any true thing can be destructive. I agree. The same thing is with flat Earth
Yeah.
or any other
Yeah.
time.
No, I think I just want to amen what you're saying, that even if something is true, that we can make that the center of our Christianity instead of the gospel, and that becomes a distortion. So anything taken to an extreme or hyper focus can distort the gospel. And the gospel certainly isn't that the earth is flat. I mean, that's not the gospel, not even close to it. I don't think Alex is suggesting that. The gospel is also not that women should wear head coverings. This is not the gospel. The gospel of Jesus Christ died for our sins, and if you repent of your sins, you'll be saved. So I mean on that. A couple more, and we'll get out of here. Timothy says, "Why does Alexei speak so strongly against the deceptive round Earth science? Yet he keeps referring to us to a non-believer for scientific evidence for a flat Earth."
When did I did that? I'm sorry. Yeah, if you misunderstood me, I'm sorry. I'm just saying that if you are being consistent, if you believe, let's just say, in this whole Milky Way galaxy, you also would have to believe in evolution because
Why is that?
uh, because think of this: Big Bang, right? Supposedly, which is false, of course. I believe it's false. Big Bang started the whole Milky Way, and then one of many galaxies is our galaxy, and then one of the many planets within our planet is. So it's once again, to me, like for example, if somebody totally denies 6 day creation and believes like in evolution, and he being a Christian, let's just say 20 plus years,
Yeah.
and still haven't figured out, I would be like, bro, I would question your salvation. Why are you denying
Well,
six
well,
day
wait a second
creation?
though. I think two questions. One on what you said, and then back to Timothy's question.
Mhm,
Um, so if I believe that the real pictures of the scientists are giving us about these galaxies, right? I have
mhm.
to believe that
I mean, if
it.
you're consistent,
Wait a
you
second. So if somebody shows me a picture, so let's think about this. Somebody shows me a picture of a baby. Right? A scientist shows me a picture of a baby in the womb, and they say, "Here's a baby, and it evolved from slime." Like, okay, so I believe that this is a real picture of a baby, but I don't believe it evolved from slime, because just because I believe you actually were able to give me an ultrasound picture doesn't mean I believe everything you say about where this baby came from, right? So just because you're able to take a picture of outer space doesn't mean I believe your explanation of how where outer space came from. See, just because just like the baby, I don't believe your explanation of where the baby came from, slime in evolution, but I do believe that's a real picture of a baby. And likewise, I believe there's a real picture of the galaxy, even though I don't agree that the way that you think the galaxy was created was created. Does that make sense? Is that a workable system? This is a real picture of the galaxy, but
Mhm.
your explanation of the galaxy is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the galaxy, it's like once again, it's like you have to once again look at the Genesis one as like question it. Why is it just focused on the Earth while we like if you look at the so-called fake science pictures, we like a tiny bit in so-called many galaxies.
But could not God be focused on this tiny bit and create this galaxy to magnify His glory?
But that would be like
How can you say what God would do?
well, I
I
mean,
mean,
I'm looking at the text. I'm looking at
where does the
the
text say
Earth.
that God couldn't do this?
Genesis chapter 1, the earth is the center of God's creation.
Okay, but what is how does that tell you how many stars there are? How
It
does that
doesn't
tell
say.
you how
Numerous,
how does
numerous.
that tell you how the Earth fits in with all the other galaxies?
But would you agree that it teaches that after 6 days, God ceased from creating, while
No.
the so-called Milky Way galaxy teaches that it's still expanding, it's still expanding. So
Well,
it's
let's say they're wrong about that. I'm
opposite
not
of
sure if
each
that's
other.
even an example of creating, though. God could have created the universe that continues to expand. It
But
doesn't.
then, but he would say that would be opposite of the Bible. How can you believe that God ceased from creating after 6 days, and then you would say, well, the universe is still expanding. It's
I
too
don't. But how
totally.
does that? How does the universe still expanding prove that God is still creating? God could have created a universe that continues to expand. That doesn't prove that God is still creating. But even if I would agree with you somehow and say that does prove that does a violation of God still creating, then I could say you're right that the universe does not expand. But how does that prove that the Earth is flat? That just proves that the Earth isn't expand. I mean, the universe is not expanding. It doesn't prove that the Earth is flat. You get what I'm saying? I can have one without the other, and I feel like we're just jumping to hasty conclusions. But back to this question real quick. The point he's saying is you keep pointing us to this atheist, to this unbeliever. You're like he's a flat Earth guy, right? But then you say all these round earth scientists, they're so deceptive, they're unbelievers and all this other stuff. But then you keep pointing to this unbeliever who's also a flat earther. And I think that's the point of Timothy's question. How does that not seem inconsistent to you that you're pointing us to an unbelieving flat earth scientist, dude?
Well, I mean, I see. Think of this: if like I said, from my standpoint of view, if the Earth is flat and I see it from the Bible, yet we have the other standpoint of view who trying to prove with so-called science that the Earth is round and is just a third rock from the sun and it's just like one of the speck of dust in whole bunch of galaxies and stuff. Then why would I not use let the scientists fight scientists, but uh, biblicists let the biblicists fight biblicists. How about that?
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's like in a duel, you choose you choose the weapon, and the weapon is the Bible, the Word of God.
Okay. Okay. Nathan says if you think, and we'll do three more and then we'll be done.
Okay.
We'll try to be definitely done here by 10 minutes. If you think you live on a spinning ball, you literally do not know which way is up. Which way is heaven on a spinning ball? Which way is heaven? I think again, I think that heaven is not literally up. Heaven is described figuratively as up. Paul describes heaven as the third heaven, the actual realm that God dwells in. Think about third heaven. The first heaven. What's the first heaven? The first heaven is the atmosphere. The second heaven is the space. The third heaven is a completely, entirely different dimension upon which God dwells, but it's figuratively described as up. So up is well up. Now, you know, obviously, if you're on different, is there an actual literal up or whatever? Well, it's all perspectival. But the point is that heaven is not literally up, so I don't think this is a problem. This is just God communicating to our senses that I am above you, higher you, I am in the heavens. And this is the way that the Bible is describing. It's not telling us that there's a literal location at heaven. We could travel to heaven simply by going up. Any response, Alexei?
Yeah, I mean, you have heaven as like skies. Then you have the second heaven, I would say firmament, and the third, second heaven as a firmament, and then third heaven as actual heaven where God dwells, not a space, bunch of space, and yeah.
Okay. All right. Uh, Daniel, question for Alexei. If you were to travel high enough in the sky and see for yourself that the earth is round, would you mean the Bible? Would that mean the Bible is wrong or you were wrong about the Bible? So, kind of a different question, similar to
hmm
the other one, but if you were to see and you were to find out that the earth is in fact round, what would be wrong? The Bible or your interpretation of the Bible?
Well, be my interpretation, but the problem is that when you fly, just look at the Earth. Can you see the curvature while you're flying on a plane? No, you don't see the curvature. I mean, just fly an airplane and just look at the horizon. Does it extend, or is that actually the so-called curvature?
Okay. I'm glad to hear that Alexi would agree that it's his interpretation of the Bible that's wrong, not the Bible itself. And I think that's what we need to do is make sure that our interpretation of the Bible is right. The Bible's certainly right about this issue. The question is, are we understanding it correctly? All right, last question here, and then we'll do. I'll let you say a few things, Alexei, and then we'll get out of here.
Mhm.
JD, can you prove that pictures from space are real? No, I cannot prove that pictures of space are real. I cannot prove that I'm not a brain in a vat. I cannot prove that you're not a brain in a vat. I cannot prove that I'm wrong about just about everything that I think I'm right about. I can't prove that. I can't even prove that I love my wife. I can't even prove that all my kids are really my kids. There's a whole bunch of things that I simply cannot prove because I could be deceived about all those various things that I just mentioned. However, I have no good reason of believing I'm deceived about any of those things. Everything logically and experientially and all those things suggest to me that I'm not wrong about those things, and hence I believe them because I have good reasons to believe them. And so, as far as the pictures in space, there's no reason for me to think that there's a giant conspiracy that is trying to tell me that the Earth is not, in fact, flat. Maybe there is a conspiracy. I just don't see any motivation. Usually, I'm looking for motive. Why would people lie to me about this? Why would they lie to me? He says money. Why would they lie to me about this? I don't know. I don't see a good reason for them to lie to me about it. And so I have no reason to doubt it. When I look at the Bible, I don't see the Bible teaching a flat earth. Hence the reason I reject it. I'm more than willing to accept it, right? I'm more than, if you can convince me, if anyone can convince me through Bible exegesis that the Bible teaches a flat earth, I'm joining flat earth team because I'm not someone who's saying, I know that the earth is, in fact, not flat because I saw a picture one day. You're right. Maybe the pictures are fake. Maybe planes are going and pretending to take off and actually not really taking off, and maybe we see the spaceships fly up and then we don't see them like land in the sea like 200 miles that way, and people
Mhm.
just like they hypnotize them and say, hey, we went on the moon, and we really didn't. Maybe when they say they went on the moon, they really went to Arizona desert and jumped on bean bags and stuff like that. I mean,
Oh, now you're
it
thinking. Now you're
could see
thinking.
it all could be fake. And it might be right, but I need more than just conspiracy theories. I need Bible exegesis before I'm jumping on any bandwagon, right? I need Bible exegesis. And in some ways, to be honest, I think it'd be really cool if the earth was flat. I think it'd be really cool if it really was true. I just don't see it. I just don't see
O-
it. So that's where I'm
Okay,
coming from.
but actually, what some one unbeliever brought this one up back even with some start studying specifically topic on flat Earth from the Bible, and just look at the pictures. Where are the stars in those pictures? Where are those stars? There's no stars at all. Like if you look at the CGI pictures, it would be like, where is the moon? Where is the sun? Where does the stars? Or where is the video? Like if you look at so-called videos of NASA, ask yourself, where are the stars in so-called space while they flying around the so-called space? So you should be able to see stars like right next to the space shuttle supposedly, but it's not.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, I will say,
Yeah, just
one.
look at, here we go, where's where's the stars at? Where's the moon? Where's the look at the so-called no, go down the NASA picture.
Well,
No,
this
no, there
one,
was like
this
a,
is
oh, here we go.
here's one picture.
Yeah, barely, which you can with some the reason is this, why they would not show like the whole spectrum where they can here we go, where's this notice something like way low, almost like a something like a finger or something, or on a screen, notice below, yeah.
Yeah.
See, like where's the stars at, where's the moon, where's the sun? It's fake image, CGI.
I will say that's interesting. We'll have to look into this.
I mean,
um,
would you expect like if you going up into the space, or would you
I guess I,
expect
I'll just say this. I guess I would like to see. It would be, it would be nice to
CGI? Nice
see.
CGI picture
It
right
would be
there.
nice to see more pictures of, actual pictures
Stars.
of. well, the Earth, the star, the moon, all of these things,
Yep, yep.
all together. But again,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I just googled this real quick, so we'll see, we'll see. So, Alexei, let me give you any last words, and then we'll get ready to close out here.
Like I said, Genesis chapter 1. Is it Earth centered or Sun centered or Milky Way centered? In my opinion, Genesis 1 teaches Earth centered. Second, God mixed the languages because they wanted to build up the tower all the way up to heaven, and God mixed the tongues for this reason. Third, Book of Joshua. Find me one verse in Book of Joshua which is prophetic. Study for yourself. That's it.
All right, very, very good. I guess for my closing statement, kind of comments here, is I just really appreciate the conversation with Alexi. He's a fun guy. He makes me laugh. And I don't mean laugh like laugh at him, but he's just a funny guy. He has this little line that we had in our last discussion that John the Baptist is not my baby, and your baby's not John the Baptist. It was just hilarious. So it's just really great talking to Alexi. As far as the flat Earth thing, it's an interesting discussion, to be honest. I think a lot of people just laugh at it and think it's ridiculous, and very well might be. But I think it's certainly worth exploring and investigating and seeing if these things are so biblically. I think really just start with the Bible. Just ask yourself, is this what the Bible teaches? And if you think it does, then go from there. Ultimately, let be God be true and every man a liar. At where I'm at right now, um, I think it's an amazing conspiracy to believe in, okay? But really, the bigger issue for me is not just the conspiracy part about it, because I do believe in a global conspiracy. It's called Satan and his angels. But it's just I don't see enough biblical evidence, right? And it seems like a lot of the arguments, even Alexei himself agreed that a lot of the flat Earth arguments are just terrible. A lot of the verses, like the pillars of the foundation of Earth, the four corners of the earth, the tree. I literally heard somebody try to make. They really thought that um, Daniel chapter 4 with that giant tree was a good case. Even Alexei, I love him to death. He really thought that the amazing experience of Jesus with Satan somehow suggested a flat earth. It's this kind of stuff that really keeps me from being able to embrace it. And this is all I see because I don't see any biblical arguments. So that's where I'm at. Be a Berean. But I don't want to diminish any true flat earth believers. If you're holding to the Bible, keep pressing on, pressing on. I would say, though, as you try to evangelize people, maybe hide this for a little while, or at very least tell people that there's a good amount of people that disagree with you, and this is not something essential to Christianity. Otherwise, as Image Bearer said, I think that you can become a stumbling block to others. So, real quick here, a few other additional debates I have coming up. Like I told you, I have a debate with Tim Stratton, or a discussion with Tim Stratton. Same thing with Braxton Hunter. There's so many various discussions. I have one about baptism coming up. Just so many discussions coming up. So if you're interested in anything like that, please hit like. Please subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified when debates like this happen. I just absolutely love having discussions like this with good brothers, and hopefully that you learn something and that we pressed you into the Bible. Until next time, you guys have a wonderful day and God bless. Bye bye.